Police say surveillance video shows the woman attempting to open a locked door, then retrieving a small drill from a Mercedes before breaking in. I'm Rich Dennison, and this is Fox News.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
With your KVFD News update, I'm Rob Jones. Dickinson County authorities issued an updated statement regarding Vincent Harvey this morning. Harvey had last been seen Saturday night at Parks Marina in Dickinson County and was officially reported missing Sunday morning. The statement from the Dickinson County Sheriff's Office this morning said that just before midnight last night, one of the deputies noticed an object in the water about 45 yards from the shore. The deputies determined it was a body and contacted the Arnold Parks Okoboji dive team. The dive team recovered the body, and the body was identified as Fort Dodge resident Vincent Harvey. The Fort Dodge Fire Department has added a new member. Cole Campen was appointed and approved by the Fort Dodge City Council at last night's City Council meeting. Campen is a Fort Dodge native who graduated from Fort Dodge Senior High School. After graduating there, he studied sports and recreation management at the University of Iowa. He also studied fire science at Kirkwood Community College in Cedar Rapids. Campen recently earned his certification as an emergency medical technician. During last night's Board of Education meeting, the board was presented with a request to suspend the class size policy for this school year. The suspension in policy would likely affect Cooper Elementary by adding a few more children to some of its classes. Board policy states the maximum number of students for kindergarten through second grade classes is 25 and 27 for third and fourth grade. The Fort Dodge Community School District said the request was a way to avoid being forced to assign students to schools that they live outside the boundaries of. Broadband survey results and the possible move toward improved broadband connectivity were the most prevalent topics at last night's Fort Dodge City Council meeting. Curtis Dean, the president of Smart Source Consulting, presented findings of the recent broadband survey to the council and laid out the future benefits of a new fiber network here in Fort Dodge.
And all these people who are on a fiber network would likely be the upload speeds would be better, and just the download speeds could be better as well, if depending on what level of service you offer.
City Councilman Terry Minke had a question regarding the durability and life expectancy of the fiber network. Here's the dean's response.
The fiber itself, those strands of glass in the ground or on poles, have a lifetime of 30 to 40 years. So you're not going to be investing in a lot of replacing fiber.
For KVFD from the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom, I'm Rob Jones.
Here's the AM 1400 KVFD weatherology forecast. Mainly clear skies and quiet this afternoon with daytime highs approaching 75. West winds 15 to 20 miles per hour. Clear skies tonight, lows level off around 52. Tomorrow, high of 75. Low 80s, Thursday, low 70s, Friday, with a chance for scattered storms. From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Currently, it's 72.
What's the biggest rack you ever saw?
You're not going to believe this, but I saw a huge rack once. I know it was a 44.
A 44? Man, I'd like to see that.
Me too.
Yep, that was a nice rack, all right.
Looking for a big rack this year? Then head for the Iowa Outdoor Store, where you'll find everything you need to bag the buck with the big rack. Bring your bow in with you and they'll make sure it's ready for the season. Check out the full line of bows and accessories today at the Iowa Outdoor Store at the junction of Highways 7 and 169, Fort Dodge.
This is happening. Our busy company's buzzing like the hornet's nest in the tree outside. Then Tina walks in.
We've got a projections problem, Brian. Management's given us crazy numbers to hit and not enough crew to handle it.
I spring into action like a human hornet and jump on Upwork. I book a team of remote freelance pros, each ready to start immediately. And those projections, with Upwork, this is happening. Hey, Tina, want to get lunch?
Thanks, but there's hornets outside.
Upwork. Hire freelancers, make things happen.
Michael Devine, the mayor of Manville.
It's a fancy title for a part-time job.
Michael Devine at AM 1400 KVFD.
That's right. This is AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. I'm Michael Devine, and we are going to tell the truth. Make it matter. We're never going to be boring. Joining me in that effort today is Fort Dodge Police Chief Roger Porter. Thanks for coming, Roger.
You bet, Mike. Thanks for having me.
So what's going on in police world today?
Oh, well, today was we had St. Ed started back to school on Friday, and
Yes,
today was
did.
the big day where the rest of them all came back to school. So it was just monitoring traffic and making sure all the kiddos get to school safely, and hopefully everybody gets home safely and with no incidents or anything.
Well, I think it's. I think we do need to think about the fact that the kids are out running around, and kids aren't going to watch out, so we have to watch out for them. I'm sure everybody's on board with that. At least I hope. And we're heading into the time of year. Steve Peterson's coming in here from the Farm Bureau after you, and he always wants to talk about slow-moving equipment out on the highway and on the blacktops, and he's right. I mean, there's
just this morning, if you're out and about before at 7:30 or so, there's a lot more traffic moving around because everybody's taking their kids to school.
There really was, wasn't there?
There was a couple accidents this morning, whether they were related to the school or not, I don't know, but there is a lot more traffic out and about. You see them all scattering, and they're all going to you're at the high school and the middle school all in one general area, so there are a lot of them are heading to that direction. And you got to remember that some of them are inexperienced drivers. You got some young kids that are getting their driver's license and they're going to school, and so just be cautious and mindful of that and watch out for the kiddos. So
we're not trying to throw a wet blanket on anything. It's just a good thing to keep in mind.
Yeah. No, everybody. We don't usually have any issues, but like I said, with the increased traffic, it's not. If you're used to going by the high school or something in the morning to work, things are going to change a little bit. You're just going to have a lot more traffic, a lot more vehicle and a lot more foot traffic in the areas and around all the elementaries and stuff like that too. So
we got a football game in town, don't we, this Friday?
Is it this Friday?
Maybe it's the following Friday. I would be surprised if it was this Friday because it's Labor Day weekend Friday.
Well, it could very well be this Friday.
But maybe it is.
I know they moved homecoming up, so
yeah. Well,
it might be the 5th or the 6th, maybe. I'm not sure on that.
No, I'm looking over here at my Iowa State football poster. I think they start this Friday. I'm thinking the St. Ed kids are in town, and Fort Dodge is out of town.
That might be, yeah.
But anyway, it's more cars, more traffic.
A lot more traffic.
We had kind of a sleepy summer. At least I did around town. I mean, I had a good summer. I got out and around and went here, there, and everywhere. But when I spent a weekend in Fort Dodge, it was kind of quiet.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that, by the way.
Yeah.
It's just about to change. That's all I think. There's just more hustle and bustle when we get the kids moving around and that sort of thing.
In a different way, the kids are going to school now.
Oh, one of your fans is on the phone already. Good afternoon. You're on the air at AM 1400 KVFD with Chief Porter.
Dodger Stadium Friday night, Fort Dodge versus Mason City for the Decker Trophy.
There you go.
Okay, so
I'm going now. Bye.
Some people are a little shy about being on the air.
So he said Fort Dodge was here Friday night?
He went so fast I didn't really understand what he said, to be honest with you.
Call back and let me know.
Somebody else call back and tell us again who's in town Friday night during the football game and who's away this Friday night as well. Yeah, thanks to the caller, but it was a little too quick for us to pick up. It's happening to me more and more. I'm kind of getting old. I think, no, I'm not the oldest radio announcer in Fort Dodge. I think Ross over at KWMT is, but we do have to pause just a moment. This has nothing to do with the police work, but we want to extend our deepest sympathies to the family of Vincent Harvey. Gosh, I watched that kid wrestle in school, and he was a well-known young man from a well-known family in our town. He died up in Okoboji. We don't really know why as of yet. I suspect drowning, but I don't think the cause of death has been revealed. But 24 years old, big, strong young man. It's just shocking.
Very sad deal, yeah.
It is.
You're right, they are good. I know the family, they're very good people. It's just a tragic accident, and we have too many of those tragic accidents. It's a sad deal, so.
Yeah, that's, God, what else can you say about it? It's just a sad, sad deal, and some people don't think that prayers make any difference. I do. I would offer prayers, and that's all I can do. A friend of mine's mother died just the other day. I've offered prayers. That's you just can't do anything else.
That's right.
Guess. Anyway, AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. I'm Michael Devine, along with Fort Dodge Police Chief Roger Porter. I'm glad we did get that Bradley Bauman character rounded up. Yeah, we were talking off mic. We were talking to him last Tuesday of the need to round him up because he's dangerous. And they caught him that night up in Humboldt, or that later that afternoon. I don't remember. Good afternoon. You're on the air at AM 1400 KVFD.
Okay, Mike, you get one more chance on this.
It's here.
And Roger, Fort Dodge plays at Dodger Stadium Friday night versus Mason City for the Decker Trophy.
All right.
There you go.
And
and my condolences to the Harvey family also.
Okay. Yeah, the whole town's mourning the Vinny Harvey, and again, well-known family. He was a well-known athlete and very likable young man, from what I understand, and to have him leave us so young when he was just getting started with his life is just one of those gut punches. It is.
Yep. It's terrible. Hey, keep up the good work, man.
Thank you very much for calling back. AM 1400 KVFD, the Force. Okay, there we got it settled. All right, so Fort Dodge is in town.
Yes.
And they're playing the Mohawks, Mason City Mohawks.
Yep.
Did you call up St. Edmunds or not on your phone there?
I did not. I can pull it up real quick.
Got here. Yeah, I'm supposed to know these things. I know, ladies and gentlemen, I'm supposed to know these things. God, I just had Mulholland and Kuhlman in here last Friday. But I don't think we talked about opening high school football in our town, which is our mistake.
Well, I know everything's kind of like homecoming, for at least for the senior high. That's been pushed up a couple of weeks. 2-3 weeks earlier than what it used to be. I think it's the second game, isn't it? Or second.
I don't know. I hadn't heard that. Really? I wonder why they're doing that.
I don't know.
Huh. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I'm glad we caught that Bradley Bauman guy. I mean, Bauman didn't seem to be a mean guy, but he just didn't care. And maybe that's worse than somebody who's threatening and dangerous and armed in some ways. Because, man, he'd get in the car and take off, and he didn't care. He'd play on the sympathies of police officers who broke off pursuit out of concern for the citizens, and he had no such concern. So, again, in a way, he was far more dangerous than somebody that sticks a gun in somebody's face and robs you. At least he goes away. This guy never seemed to.
Yeah, and he's still, I think he's there, he's still got some charges coming out of some other counties, I think.
I was going to ask you that.
Humboldt included. Obviously they seen him based on the word that we were putting out there, and young alert officer up in Humboldt seen somebody that fit his description and recognized it as being him, and it sounds like he was on a motorcycle and ended up trying to take off on them and ended up laying the motorcycle down and then running on foot. And they end up finding him hidden in a basement of an apartment complex.
Yeah.
So glad that they were able to find him and get him cuffed up and brought him back to us to see those charges. So I think he's got some charges out of other counties that he's waiting to go up here on those on too. So.
It's originally from the Nevada area. I thought that
Nevada Ames area.
Yeah, I thought I heard some. I shouldn't say unless I know, but I thought I heard that he had a problem down there, or maybe that could be wrong. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know how he got up here. Well, he was operating up here for a while, which means he's
got some connection.
He had some kind of help.
Yeah.
Would the Fort Dodge Police Department be looking into that possibility?
Yeah, we always try to find connections and stuff and see what anything that we can do to further our cases. So, and they have an idea of what they're looking at. So,
people who sheltered this guy or assisted him in some way.
Right.
Well, if that's the case, and it sounds like it is, I mean, of course. Me and my fellow detectives at J. Mar's Coffee Shop, we had the thing settled here a while ago, and we just assumed that he had somebody in town was hiding him at the very least and giving him some sort of assistance, or I don't understand that sort of thinking, so I can't speculate any further than I already have. But if you have a question or comment for Chief Porter, it is 955-1400, 515-955-1400 if you have a question, or really if we need help figuring out who's playing football in town.
St. Ed's is playing at Panorama this week.
Panorama, I thought that was it.
Yep, they're at Panorama.
Yeah, I thought so. Thought I heard that they were down there. Panorama last year was in town, of course, and I went out to see the game. They had a hell of a quarterback last year that gave the St. Ed's kids fits. I hope he's graduated and moved on. Hope he's graduated and moved on. Gosh, I was going to ask you something, and now I should always write these things down because I can't remember now right off the top of my head what I was going to ask you. But did you go down to the Rib Ruckus over the weekend?
I did not.
Okay, I didn't either.
I was going to go down there later on in the afternoon. We actually had our law enforcement our police association fundraising golf outing out at the country club.
Oh,
Saturday.
that's right.
So and I was out there golfing in that, so that was a good time.
How's the game, Raj?
Well, that's another story. Had a good turnout. A lot of good people showed up to support it. So, and all that money goes into the coffers for things like Santa Cops and things like that. So it's.
Oh, I know. It was Cop on a Roof. Isn't that coming up here
Yeah,
pretty
that's
soon?
coming
Didn't I
up
see
too.
that?
Yeah, I got that in my calendars. I think it's in September.
Second week of September, like that.
Typically it's raining or something, and then we got to stand up, and we do it anyway. So
Well,
we're kinda
I didn't even know they had such a thing as Cop
Oh
on
yeah,
a Roof.
we've been doing it for a few years.
Yeah,
now.
I know. I went out there probably the first or second year, and there was cops on the roof.
Special Olympics and raise money for that type of stuff. So it's
yeah. Describe it. What it's out at
Dunkin' Donuts.
Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah.
It's out at Dunkin' Donuts, and the police serve the donuts and everything, don't they?
Yeah, we're out there. Well, we're on the roof up there. We do help inside a little bit. Some of us that don't want to get up on the roof or can say something, but yeah, they do a great job out there. And I think from what I understanding is that the last couple of years we've been one of, if not the highest, one of the highest money raisers for Fort Dodge has been. So that just gives credit to the people in this community that come by and give money for good causes.
Is it a fundraiser only for Special Olympics?
Yeah.
That's a good cause, though.
It's a great cause.
You know, a lot of people in town are involved in Special
Yeah.
Olympics. We have the Special Olympics. Do we have? Well, we have something. Is it Special Olympics out at Dodger Stadium?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and
I've been out there a couple of times. The participants are really into it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they have a good time out there. It's fun watching them too.
Yeah.
They get competitive and have.
They do get
it's
pretty
really
competitive,
fun.
don't they?
It's fun to watch. Fun to watch their faces and they just have a great time. So I think it's kind of their it's their Olympics. So I mean they
That's
really
right.
get into it. So.
Well, sports is educational.
Absolutely.
Sports and competitive sports are educational, and they improve the lives of young people. And I'm glad we have Special Olympics. And I know Liddy Hora's been involved in that, and Liddy's involved in practically everything. And God bless her. And I'm glad we're doing that in town. And I'm glad a lot of people step up and help with that. And I know we have several special athletes in our area. I don't know how big an area we draw from for the
quite a ways, I think.
It is, I think, because we have a lot of kids out there. I've seen.
Yeah, you see a lot of different towns represented, a lot of different cities in Iowa that are represented. Out there at Dodger Stadium. So
parents are pretty proud too, and they should be.
Absolutely.
It's a nice thing.
Absolutely.
I really am glad we
I've
do
gone
that.
to last couple of them. I think I've been to, so it's a good time.
All right. Okay. All right, Chief Roger Porter is our guest. If you have a question or comment, it's 515-955-1400, 515-955-1400. So you did say there's still kind of an investigation into what Bradley Bauman was doing in our town.
We're doing our follow-up, and like I said, I know some other agencies still are working on some charges or have charges against him as well. So once he's done with our charges, or at least answering to them, then he'll go there and answer to those charges as well. So hopefully it keeps him in there for a while, because I mean, as far as
he needs a little time to meditate.
I'm all about the rehabilitation process, and hopefully it works for him. But you just don't want somebody like that out on the street that doesn't care about the lives of anybody else when they're running around in a 2,000-pound vehicle at a high rate of speed. That's a weapon. So
that is a weapon, and he didn't care where it went either. That's the dangerous part of it, and so. I'm glad that it happened the way it did before somebody really did get hurt.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Roger, you got anything else, or are we done here?
I think we're done. I got we got Citizens Academy starting up here in another week. Is that what you were going to ask me about? That's what it looks like. That's what you were going to ask me about.
That's right. I got. I can still get signed up, right? All right.
Get it done now. Get it done this week.
Get it done. Yeah, get it done right now. I was talking about doing it on Friday, and I screwed it up again. But Citizens Academy, can anybody still?
It's actually closed on Friday. We'll see how much we got. If people want to take advantage of it, we can look and see how many seats we have available and stuff. But inquire, please. So
sure. Well, we'll do all that. Thank you, Chief.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Chief Roger Porter has been our guest.
Michael Devine, the mayor of Manville.
It's a fancy title for a part-time job.
Michael Devine at AM 1400 KVFD.
All right, it's 2:24. Steve Peterson with the Farm Bureau coming up at AM 1400.
Don't wanna discuss it. Think it's time for a change. You may get disgusted. Start thinking that I'm strange. Never have to worry about what is worst or what is best. Get it? Oh, domino.
What's the secret to high-yielding winter wheat? I'm Nicole Heslop with Managing for Profit on Brownfield. Yields in this year's Michigan Wheat Performance Trials are nearly double of what USDA is forecasting for a national winter wheat average. Experts say part of the reason is cooler weather, but high management practices are making a difference. We'll have more right after this.
Here's farmer and businessman James Wood.
We farm about 3,500 acres. There's pipelines everywhere. The contractor working on my property did not have the lines located before he began work, and it resulted on a strike on a natural gas pipeline. Fortunately, no one was hurt, but it could have been much worse.
Never assume the location or depth of underground lines. Always call 811 or visit clickbeforeyoudig.com before you start work. A message from the Pipeline Operators for Ag Safety campaign.
You might not know everyone in your community, but if you did, you'd see that people in recovery from mental and substance use disorders are all around. Reach out for support and begin your recovery journey. Join the Voices for Recovery. Strengthen families and communities.
For confidential information on mental and substance use disorders, including prevention and treatment referrals for you or someone you know, call 1-800-662-HELP. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Surviving the polar vortex has helped researchers discover a malting barley variety ideal for the Eastern Corn Belt. Director of Procurement Whitney Thompson with Origin Malt says a need for local barley for the craft beverage industry led them to work with plant breeders at Ohio State University.
Back in 2014, there was a polar vortex that affected and created a lot of winter kill for cereal grains. And when Dr. Stockinger looked at his plots, there was one variety that stood out, and that was Puffin. And Puffin is a variety that is a germplasm owned by Lima Grain cereal seeds. And because Puffin survived and had an 80% survival rate after that polar vortex, and all the other varieties had less than 5%, it was very clear at that point in time that Puffin was going to be the starting point for us in terms of a variety to work with.
Origin Malt has exclusive rights to the variety since. She says Ohio once was a prominent barley growing region, but Prohibition took away farmers' markets.
4 of the 5 largest malt houses were in Ohio. There were about 350,000 acres worth of barley that were grown in Ohio, but Prohibition stopped all of that.
She tells Brownfield less than 500 acres of malting barley was grown in the state since 2017. But their company plans to source about 75,000 acres in Ohio and surrounding states within the next 5 years.
We want to be educating our farmers so that they know what is best in order to try and have the most viable malting barley crop possible. And when I initially talk to growers, I'm telling them to consider a high-maintenance wheat. So if they've ever worked with growing a high-maintenance wheat, barley is very similar.
Thompson says research is also finding a 20-bushel yield bump to soybeans in the following rotation.
In the Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, and Pennsylvania regions, you can harvest barley a little bit sooner than wheat, which allows growers to have an even earlier double cropping opportunity with soybeans. As a result, on the back end, the grower tends to see a little higher yield on the soybeans.
The company plans to build their own malt house within the next 5 years. I'm Nicole Heslop with Brownfield.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence.
With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's BABBEL.com.
Warning: if you're buried in debt you can't afford, do not let the credit card companies make you think you have to pay it all back, because you don't. What the credit card companies don't want you to know is that there's actually a way to get debt-free without paying off your entire debt or going bankrupt. If you have $10,000 or more in credit card debt, you now have the right to let us settle that debt for a fraction of what you owe. For free information, call Credit Answers at 800-970-5932. If you're struggling to pay off your debt, do not let the credit card companies make you think you have to. Call Credit Answers now for free information on how to get out of debt faster than you ever thought possible, without debt consolidation or bankruptcy. We offer a guarantee with no upfront fees, so there's no risk. For free information, visit creditanswers.com or call 800-970-5932. That's 800-970-5932.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
With your KVFD News Update, I'm Rob Jones. Dickinson County authorities issued an updated statement regarding Vincent Harvey this morning. Harvey had last been seen Saturday night at Parks Marina in Dickinson County and was officially reported missing Sunday morning. The statement from the Dickinson County Sheriff's Office this morning said that just before midnight last night, one of the deputies noticed an object in the water about 45 yards from the shore. The deputies determined it was a body and contacted the Arnold Parks Okoboji dive team. The dive team recovered the body, and the body was identified as Fort Dodge resident Vincent Harvey. The Fort Dodge Fire Department has added a new member. Cole Campen was appointed and approved by the Fort Dodge City Council at last night's City Council meeting. Campen is a Fort Dodge native who graduated from Fort Dodge Senior High School. After graduating there, he studied sports and recreation management at the University of Iowa. He also studied fire science at Kirkwood Community College in Cedar Rapids. Campen recently earned his certification as an emergency medical technician. During last night's Board of Education meeting, the board was presented with a request to suspend the class size policy for this school year. The suspension in policy would likely affect Cooper Elementary by adding a few more children to some of its classes. Board policy states the maximum number of students for kindergarten through second grade classes is 25 and 27 for third and fourth grade. The Fort Dodge Community School District said the request was a way to avoid being forced to assign students to schools that they live outside the boundaries of. Broadband survey results and the possible move toward improved broadband connectivity were the most prevalent topics at last night's Fort Dodge City Council meeting. Curtis Dean, the president of Smart Source Consulting, presented findings of the recent broadband survey to the council and laid out the future benefits of a new fiber network here in Fort Dodge.
And all these people who are on a fiber network would likely be the upload speeds would be better, and just the download speeds could be better as well, depending on what level of service you offer.
City Councilman Terry Minke had a question regarding the durability and life expectancy of the fiber network. Here's the dean's response.
The fiber itself, those strands of glass in the ground or on poles, have a lifetime of 30 to 40 years. So you're not going to be investing in a lot of replacing fiber.
For KVFD from the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom, I'm Rob Jones.
This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge, 2:34, 26 minutes before 3 o'clock. And the weather today, first of all, 74 degrees. It's going to be sunny today, maybe with a high of 75. Overnight, clear with a low of 52. Tomorrow, sunny with a high of 75. On Thursday, sunny with a high of 82. Friday, slight chance of rain, mostly sunny with a high of 73. Saturday, a little bit of rain, otherwise sunny with a high of 70. On Sunday, it'll be sunny with a high of 76. And on Labor Day, sunny with a high of 80 degrees. Again, right now, 74 degrees. Obituaries this hour brought to you by Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services at 1615 North 15th Street, Fort Dodge. You may contact Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services by calling 515-576-7128 or online at www.gundersonfuneralhome.com. Carol Murphy has died. Services for Carol Murphy were this morning at Corpus Christi Church at 10:30. Gunderson Funeral Home also in service to Mary Lou Imus and Margaret Field. Obituaries this hour brought to you by Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services at 1615 North 15th Street, Fort Dodge. You may contact Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services by calling 515-576-7128 or online at www.gundersonfuneralhome.com. 74 degrees, sunny skies at AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. With a look at the closing market report, here's Dwayne Murley.
Here's a look at how the markets closed today. September corn down 1.5 at $3.57. December down 2 cents at $3.66 1/4. March down 2 3/4 at $3.77 3/4. May down 3 cents at $3.86. September soybeans down 7.5 at $8.46 1/4. November down 8 cents at $8.59 1/4. January down 7.5 at $8.73. March down 7 1/4 at $8.86 1/4. September wheat closed up 3/4 cent at $4.73 3/4. Soybean meal down 1.50 a ton at $2.91.50. August live cattle down 72 cents at $104.75. October down 1.22 at $99.77. August feeder cattle down a dime at $138.55. September down 2.22 at $133.77. October lean hogs down 57 cents at $63.22. December down 12 at $62.90. I'm Dwayne Murley.
Acre to acre, year to year, generation to generation. Nobody scrutinizes performance like you do. And acre to acre, year to year, generation to generation. The consistent performance of Asgrow brand soybeans helps to keep your profitability out in front. Offering a suite of tailored integrated solutions and 100% exclusive genetics for strong yield potential. Plus the Roundup Ready Extend crop system, the #1 soybean system planted by farmers, featuring XtendiMax herbicide with Vapor Grip technology to control more weeds than any other soybean system, so you can spray your fields with confidence. Ask your dealer how much further you can grow when Asgrow leads the way. XtendiMax herbicide with Vapor Grip technology is a restricted use pesticide. Always read and follow IRM where applicable, grain marketing, and all other stewardship practices and pesticide label directions. Check with your state pesticide regulatory agency for specific restrictions in your state.
When is a calculator more than a calculator? When it takes me from solving math problems
to exploring the universe.
Staples is your back-to-school destination. Find all the supplies and inspiration you need. Come in store this week for great deals under $1. Right now, Staples 1-subject notebooks are just 25 cents each, and Staples composition books, 2 pocket poly folders, and 24-pack Crayola crayons are just 50 cents each. Staples, back to school and beyond. In-store only, ends 8/31/19. Limit 30 on notebooks, folders, and crayons while supplies last.
Need a new roof? Have you considered that there's very few roofers to choose from, and come September, everyone at once will decide their roof must be completed before winter? The last thing you want is the winter roof that will never seal properly, or an improperly installed roof done by a contractor you may never see again. Don't wait any longer. Call Hahn Roofing today, and in most cases, they can start your project within 2 weeks and finish within 1 or 2 days. Call Hahn Roofing today for your free estimate. 515-573-7440. That's Hahn Roofing, 515-573-7440.
We stand for people, progress and pride.
We're the Iowa Farm Bureau, and we support farm families. We're a voice on local, state, and national issues. We're also committed to making rural Iowa a better place to live and keeping Iowa farm families on the farm.
People, progress and pride, it's true. Iowa Farm Bureau's helping you.
If you don't listen to him, you suck.
He's sneaky, but he's right.
Michael Devine at AM 1400 KVFD.
That's right. That's where you are. AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. I'm Michael Devine. Yeah, we're going to tell the truth, make it matter, and we're never going to be boring. With me now, Congressman Steve Peterson. Well, no, that was... Congressman was in here yesterday. Steve, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Mike?
Steve's with the Webster County Farm Bureau, of course. He's past president of the Webster County Farm Bureau. And this portion of the program is brought to you by the Webster County Farm Bureau. You know, I did talk with Congressman King a little bit yesterday, and I think I may have asked you this before. Does the Farm Bureau endorse candidates? Do you have a you have a dog in the fight when it comes to the Republican nomination? I mean, we have Congressman King, Randy Feenstra, and Jeremy Taylor, and one other who I keep forgetting who it is.
We do have a mechanism that on the elections, it's Friends of Agriculture designation.
A friend of agriculture.
A friend of agriculture is what we will designate candidates.
Congressman King has been a friend of agriculture, hasn't he?
I'm sure he has. Our designation for that designation is purely based on the voting record of issues that the Farm Bureau deems appropriate. So it's not based on a party. It's not based on any other relationships. It is strictly on the voting record, and we will do that on the local candidates, on national stages, elections, and we will designate those. So I know last year with locally Ann Meyer and Dr. I still can't say her name.
Srinivas.
Because neither was a new candidate. Of course, Helen Miller.
Both of them were new candidates at the time.
Both of them were new, but they were replacing Helen Miller. Helen Miller had always gotten a Friend of Agriculture award from us.
Helen was a pretty good representative, really.
She was, and she represented us in farm bureaus, usually very effectively, and was designated that award. We chose because neither of last year's candidates had a record that we could not nominate or put a designation on one of them. We didn't think that was right.
Yeah.
They were both very really not proven or tried on agriculture. Definitely wasn't completely in both of their wheelhouses. I do believe that Dr. Srinivas, though, did have some agricultural background, I believe, in Africa. I think she did a project in that.
Dr. Srinivas?
Yeah, it was kind of it was kind of an interesting
I got to
project.
talk to her once. She seemed to have done practically everything.
Right. But I can say personally, since Representative Meyer has been on State House, she's been wonderful to work with. And
I'll tell you,
she listens. She asks questions. She's very engaging on a lot of different issues. So
that girl is a hard worker.
She has. She's been, I think, pretty amazing for representing this district up here, and so when it comes time for her election or on the national elections, we'll look at the facts and look at the voting records and put them to the test, and that's what will dictate a Farm Bureau Friend of Agriculture designation. So
yeah. Gosh, now what was I going to say to you? I'm over here posting your video that I just took of you. Farm Bureau Friend of Agriculture designation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Mr. King, agriculture wise, he has been a strong ally. I think a lot of us are disappointed. I'm gonna say is kind of the word I would use personally. Maybe disappointed about him, some of the events that's transpired to make him be excluded from his committee assignments that he was originally designated for. That's effectively what a lot of both seniority and ability to voice in a lot of these committees is.
Yeah, we got big things going on in the 4th District, and we don't have a voice, as a matter of fact.
Correct. So, there's some disappointment, I think, personally, and I think that's felt by a lot of people in the district for our kind of lack of representation right now in some of those issues.
I do want to, we were just talking about Ann Meyer. It's Dr. Jim Meyer, her husband. It's his birthday today. I think he's 57.
Oh, well, happy birthday.
Happy birthday. He's just a youngster, 57 years old.
And you got to give credit out to him, too. Boy, he's out there campaigning.
He's right there with her,
He's right there with her.
Yes, he is.
So, it's kind of, we got 2 for 1, I think, on that vote there.
Oh, we did. We did. Hard workers, good people.
And a lot of knowledge.
Yeah, we've gotten to be friends in the last few years, and they're fantastic people. They really are. They really are.
But I got to listen to Representative King yesterday.
On the big AM 1400?
Yeah, I listened to his interviews.
Mighty AM.
And I, personally, I was a little disappointed maybe on the lack of anything new. it seemed to look
well, what was new was he was defending himself.
He was very defensive. So that I guess I'd like to hear how he's going to change in his vision. That's something I guess you're really not encouraged to listen for or from a representative that's been elected 9 times. So
I would encourage the congressman to quit talking to the New York Times and quit talking about incest and rape. Period.
Yeah, and so
we don't need that. What we need, especially right now, is some attention to the driver of our economy. That's agriculture.
Right. I as someone that lives in this district need someone speaking up against supporting ethanol. I need someone supporting pushing the Mexico-Canada trade deal through. I need just basically a lot of the international trade talk. The Midwest, I think, has been very, very patient. We've been talking about these potential trade deals.
Oh, for God's sake, how long?
For over a year.
Yeah.
And it's a never-ending cycle, it seems like. Friday there was, of course, some fireworks, and the Chinese retaliated. And at least I don't know if the president's getting some little more game or whatever, but at least he announced that he waited till after the markets closed to announce he upped his retaliation some more. But then over the weekend, they were at the G7, and they had it was kind of a weird announcement with Japan, but I have yet to really see any factual details of it. It sounds like it could possibly be good for agriculture, but again, we really haven't seen the substance or the facts of what's going to happen there. And then mysteriously, in the nighttime, which it's daytime over their 12 hours difference roughly, China supposedly is taken, and it tried to initiate coming back into a little more friendly conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So September could be a big month. We're going to get the Congress back in Washington. They're going to have the opportunity to ratify the USMCA, the United States Mexico-Canada Agreement. That's a good thing.
That's the Democrats that hasn't gotten done yet.
Unfortunately, I think there's just a lot of political posturing going on that they really don't want to give this administration a win.
They don't want to give Trump anything, and they want to punish Midwestern farmers. Now, that's your Democratic Party for you.
And unfortunately, that looks to be or is the game
that
that's
is
going
the
on.
reality
Is the
of
game on that agreement. The Chinese, it's a tough deal. I was in China in March. I'm so grateful I got to go. It puts a lot of it into context now for me to see. Before we went to China, we had some briefings with within Farm Bureau, some advisors for foreign travel and whatnot, and they gave us some do's and don'ts. One thing they told us was never to bring up Taiwan with anyone in China. That's a very sore subject. Personally,
could be getting a little sorer over there from what I've seen.
Personally, in my experience over there, Taiwan was not as much of a hot button as Japan was. There's a lot of still ill feelings that have been passed down through the generations from World War II. And so the United States is sitting over there and then announces some big trade deal with Japan, and then lo and behold, that same night, China comes back knocking on the door. Maybe there's some correlation there, but I think I think he's doing the right thing, and I think we need to expand our trade. I think we've got kind of in a rut. It was too easy to trade with China, but China really was taking advantage of us, but it was just the easy thing to do. For years, I've heard, we sell 1 out of 3 rows of soybeans to China here in Iowa.
Sure. Dean Coleman said that many times.
We bragged about it to a point, but we almost got too reliant on them and made them too powerful. within China, their structure is so different, but it's a it's a communist country or a communist governed country, and in their food industry, whether it's the dairy or I think what we're going to see in the future, we're going to see more of a modernized hog herd there. They don't want any one company or industry to have too much control of the food too. So like in their dairy sector, they showed us that they want to have about 4 big players. That way, if one player falters, the others can back it up. So the analogy that was told to us several times over there is that China's playing chess and we're playing checkers.
Mm-hmm.
We're playing the short game. They're looking at a long-term game. So it's going to be interesting to see if anything substantive comes of this. Farmers are hurting right now. There's a lot of guys do not have hardly any soybeans marketed really yet. It's just we've been biding our time, hoping that I think there was a lot of disappointment in this August report that the USDA come out with that had such. A lot of farmers didn't believe the numbers. We still don't believe the numbers, but we thought there'd be a correction in the market with that. That came to not happen. Now we're hearing a lot of other uncertainties. I've seen some facts coming out. Bankruptcies are potentially on the increase through the Midwest. A lot of farmers are they're burning through a lot of their equity. Their balance sheets are going to look pretty slim in the near future if we stay on this pace. So I think the patience is going to run out.
Burning through their equity, what do you mean? Their land value? Or?
Well, they're on their balance sheets, the land values and the equipment values and, a lot of equity that's been built up over the years, their balance sheets are dwindling.
Mm-hmm.
Cash is always tight in a narrow market like this. So it's the MFP payments, that's the market facilitation payments. That's we kind of coined it as the Trump bump last year. Now they have the MFP version 2.
Wow.
That's the new one that came out. Those payments are I got mine on Monday, so I just got that yesterday. So they should be trickling out to the producers. And what those amount to is in Webster County, I think we were designated for $68 an acre.
Mm-hmm.
That is for every acre planted or your certified acres that went out. And what they did is they are going to do 3 installments. So I had basically a 50% payment made now, so I got half. And then come, I believe, in December, if the trade war is still progressing, we'll receive a quarter, 25%. And then if it's still going on after the first year, we'll receive the final 25% in January. So they have basically fronted half of the money, and they've got 2 options to fulfill that payment depending on where we're at in a trade situation. I would rather not receive those, but it is farmers are grateful to get an influx of money at this time of year too.
Well, yeah, everybody wants positive trade.
Right.
And,
so it's definitely not going to make a farmer whole by the offset in the price, but it right now. So this week I've already started pre-buying inputs for next year.
Sure.
It always kind of amazes me. I'm already thinking about 2020's crop and its inputs, and I haven't taken this one out of the ground yet. So,
sure.
It's kind of a strange time of year. And then on the flip side, I'm like many farmers. I've still got some 2018 crop that's sitting in a bin. So I've kind of got a mess right now going of potential 3 decisions of 3 crop years going. So
sure.
That's it's a juggling act.
What's the price of corn today?
Corn today, I think it ended up being down just a little bit. Looks like, let's pull it up. At Poet Ethanol and Gary, it's $3.57. So your elevators will probably be around $3.50, $3.45.
You talked about the historical hard feelings between China and Japan over the many years, and certainly when Japan conquered a good portion of China during the Second World War, actually in the 1930s, and the way the Japanese treated the Chinese were terrible. There's been books written about it. The Rape of Nanking comes to mind, but I know there was an idea not too long ago that Ukraine, which the country of Ukraine, which is a very fertile area.
Yeah, that's considered the breadbasket of Europe,
right?
The Ukrainian area.
They were going to step up and start selling to China.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the Russians and Chinese hate each other and have for many, many centuries, since all the Khans, Genghis Khan, Kublai Khan, invaded Russia, or what is now Russia or the Soviet Union.
Correct.
So Richard Nixon supposedly told a story about meeting Leonid Brezhnev, and Brezhnev approached Nixon with the idea that both countries should use their nuclear weapons on China, because there was already close to 1 billion people in China at that time, and as Brezhnev said, every one of them can get by every day on just a bowl of rice, he said. And that scared Brezhnev, to have people like that right next door that could get by in so little and keep going,
Yeah.
So that was, I have no idea if that story is factual or not.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me to talk to people my age or younger over in China, that still, you could still since carried a very, very big grudge against Japanese people. That it's pretty powerful sentiment over there for what happened.
They were terrible, ruthless imperialists.
So that I don't think there's, and then of course Taiwan is a very disputed territory over there, and so it's a very complex. I don't want to say it's a game, because it's not a game.
No, God, no.
But it's just a very complex situation of negotiating and a certain amount of honor. In my view, a deal in the end, both countries are going to have to save face a little bit.
Sure.
There's going to have to be some give and take on both ends, and sadly, this agriculture or our Midwest economies are really not what's in dispute. It's the intellectual properties and the IT theft and a whole bunch of stuff that's not really directly related to Midwestern agriculture and stuff, but the ag seems to be the
weapon.
They've weaponized the food to, I think, try to get their point across. But this idea of tariffs where we're just, I think we're out of almost anything to put a tariff on if this next round goes in.
I don't know what outside of completely breaking off trade altogether. I don't know what else is left.
So it's an unfortunate deal, but every week in the news cycle, it seems like we're in a different place. The Japanese thing, I had heard some talk about opening up some meat imports. I believe American beef has been kind of held out of Japan for a long time, and there was some talk of opening up some of those markets and there. So to bring, I don't believe in Japan they really produce any coarse grains. I think they might do some rice, but as far as coarse grains and the land is, they have so many people and so few acres of land. They really are not a production-based country. They're dependent on imports. So I would think the relationship we have with Japan would be, for after World War II. I mean, I think it doesn't seem, we did so much with that country after the war. I would think we'd have a fairly good relationship, and I would expect a good trading partner with them.
I hope so. I keep thinking back, many years ago when I had a brother-in-law that was raising Berkshire hogs. The Japanese just loved that. So my brother-in-law raised them at the time because he got 10 cents more a head.
Right.
Or 10 cents a pound more on the head than other pork. And I bought a couple of his hogs and had it in my freezer. And God, that was great pork. I don't know if anybody still raise Berkshire pigs around here or not. I suppose they do. But yeah, I just remember that the Japanese especially wanted our pork back then. And that was probably 20 years ago or more than 20 years ago.
And something out of the news right now, it seems like African swine fever. We're not hearing too much about it, but it sounds to me like it's also spreading now. I think it's in the Ukraine or some of the Soviet bloc countries, and it still seems to be running rampant over there.
Yeah, that's not good. Steve Peterson's our guest this portion of the program. Being brought to you by the Webster County Farm Bureau. It's 3 o'clock. News is next, and we'll be back with Steve in the next segment. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge.
From tuning an engine to replacing a fuse, you can learn it all under the hood. Heard every Saturday afternoon from 2 till 4 on the voice of Fort Dodge, AM 1400 KVFD.
Charges filed after patient deaths. I'm Rich Dennison, Fox News. 4 people working at a Florida nursing home where patients died in the aftermath of a hurricane now facing manslaughter charges.
4 former supervisors and nurses from the Hollywood Hills Rehabilitation Center in Broward County, Florida, are now each charged with 12 counts of manslaughter for each patient who died from heat and other bad conditions in the aftermath of 2017's Hurricane Irma. Hollywood Police Chief Chris O'Brien spoke in front of victims' families.
They placed their faith and trust in the Rehabilitation Center of Hollywood Hills, its medical and administrative staff, and that trust was betrayed.
And also adds the investigation isn't over and that more arrests are likely.
Fox's Eben Brown in Miami. More than a dozen of Jeffrey Epstein's accusers spoke at a hearing in New York today regarding the case of the late millionaire. Fox's Brian Yennis was at the courthouse.
Courtney Wild, fighting back tears, said, quote, "I feel very angry and sad that justice has never been served. He robbed me of a day in court, and for that, he is a coward." Accuser Virginia Giuffre said, quote, "Epstein is no longer alive, but today is not about his death. It is about how he lived."
That hearing was called after prosecutors asked the sex trafficking charges against Epstein be dropped following his suicide at a federal facility. The judge has not yet ruled on that motion. Actress Lori Loughlin and her husband Massimo Giannulli are appearing in a Boston federal courtroom at this hour, addressing issues of conflict of interest with their attorneys. Both have entered not guilty pleas in the college admissions bribery scandal. Stocks erasing a triple-digit gain seen earlier today. The Dow falling 124 points, the S&P down 10, the NASDAQ ending the day 27 points lower. America is listening to Fox News.
Summer's ending, and savings are back in business with Dell's Labor Day sale. Small businesses can save up to 40% on select business computers with Intel Core processors, plus free shipping on everything, including a wide selection of thousands of top-brand electronics. Give our specially trained small business technology advisors a call. They can help you find just the right tech to fit your business with Labor Day savings. Visit Dell.com/business deals or call 877-BUY-DELL. That's 877-BUY-DELL.
Ah, the copperhead snake. It hisses before attacking. But that's not a copperhead. That's the Sullivan's RV freshwater tank overflowing into their black one, which is backing into their vent pipe, making for a very different kind of attack. One that arrives just in time for taco night. It's wild out there. When it gets too wild, Progressive has your RV covered. Quote today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
Concerns from Japan's government over recent missile tests by North Korea.
While President Trump has largely downplayed North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's 7 short-range missile tests in the past month, Japan's defense minister has not, who says they pose a grave problem which can't be overlooked. Unlike traditional ballistic missiles, which follow a predictable path, missile experts say these new North Korean missiles are more erratic and harder to predict, challenging modern missile defense systems. At the Pentagon, Lucas Tomlinson, Fox News.
A former Google engineer charged today with stealing company secrets on self-driving cars, then selling them to Uber. The charges stem from a lawsuit which saw Uber pay nearly $250 million to Google's Waymo division. Anthony Lewandowski facing 33 counts of trade secrets theft. His attorneys maintain their client is innocent. He faces decades in a federal prison if convicted. Well, hold on to those final few weeks of summer.
Feels like summer now, and then here comes the polar coaster. The Farmer's Almanac, charming weather word for the mix of snow and frigid temperatures on the way for winter 2020, lingering into spring, calling for bitterly cold winter conditions from east of the Rockies all the way to the Appalachians, free-falling frigid temperatures from the northern plains into the Great Lakes, extra cold northeast big city winters with above normal precip and a polar coaster ride of lots of snow and wintry mix. Only the western third of the country gets near normal winter temperatures. Chilly but near normal precip in the northwest and southwest. Farmer's Almanac editors say don't blame them, but their mathematical, astronomical formula developed in 1818. Therese Crowley, Fox News.
A dilly of a theft in northern New Mexico. 31-year-old Paul Trujillo is charged with burglary and larceny. Police say he was one of two men who broke into a Dairy Queen freezer, stealing 22 boxes of dilly bars. I'm Rich Dennison, and this is Fox News.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
With your KVFD News Update, I'm Rob Jones. Dickinson County authorities issued an updated statement regarding Vincent Harvey this morning. Harvey had last been seen Saturday night at Parks Marina in Dickinson County and was officially reported missing Sunday morning. The statement from the Dickinson County Sheriff's Office this morning said that just before midnight last night, one of the deputies noticed an object in the water about 45 yards from the shore. The deputies determined it was a body and contacted the Arnold Parks Okoboji dive team. The dive team recovered the body, and the body was identified as Fort Dodge resident Vincent Harvey. The Fort Dodge Fire Department has added a new member. Cole Campen was appointed and approved by the Fort Dodge City Council at last night's City Council meeting. Campen is a Fort Dodge native who graduated from Fort Dodge Senior High School. After graduating there, he studied sports and recreation management at the University of Iowa. He also studied fire science at Kirkwood Community College in Cedar Rapids. Campen recently earned his certification as an emergency medical technician. During last night's Board of Education meeting, the board was presented with a request to suspend the class size policy for this school year. The suspension in policy would likely affect Cooper Elementary by adding a few more children to some of its classes. Board policy states the maximum number of students for kindergarten through second grade classes is 25 and 27 for third and fourth grade. The Fort Dodge Community School District said the request was a way to avoid being forced to assign students to schools that they live outside the boundaries of. Broadband survey results and the possible move toward improved broadband connectivity were the most prevalent topics at last night's Fort Dodge City Council meeting. Curtis Dean, the president of Smart Source Consulting, presented findings of the recent broadband survey to the council and laid out the future benefits of a new fiber network here in Fort Dodge.
And all these people who are on a fiber network would likely be the upload speeds would be better, and just the download speeds could be better as well, if depending on what level of service you offer.
City Councilman Terry Minke had a question regarding the durability and life expectancy of the fiber network. Here's the Dean's response.
The fiber itself, those strands of glass in the ground or on poles, have a lifetime of 30 to 40 years. So you're not going to be investing in a lot of replacing fiber.
For KVFD from the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom, I'm Rob Jones.
Here's the AM 1400 KVFD weatherology forecast. Mainly clear skies and quiet this afternoon with daytime highs approaching 75. West winds 15 to 20 miles per hour. Clear skies tonight, lows level off around 52. Tomorrow, high of 75. Low 80s, Thursday, low 70s, Friday, with a chance for scattered storms. From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Currently, it's 74.
In today's economy, it just makes sense to plan ahead. At Historic Bruce Funeral Home, pre-planning your funeral arrangements can save you money. By planning ahead, you can secure your arrangements at today's prices, no matter when our services are needed. Pre-planning your funeral is one of the most thoughtful things you can do for your family. Call us for details. Historic Bruce Funeral Home, Fort Dodge. Online at brucesfuneralhome.com.
We stand for people, progress and pride. Iowa Farm Bureau's by your side.
We're the Iowa Farm Bureau, and we believe in Iowa's future. We support Iowa's youth, encourage ag innovations, and nurture new business opportunities in rural communities. We're a century strong and growing. To learn more, contact your local county farm bureau.
Michael Devine at AM 1400 KVFD.
Listen to this.
Making radio great again.
That's right, we're making radio great again. And I'm proposing a Green New Deal. We start tearing down buildings all over town and refitting them for that lovely solar energy and the brave new world that the Democrats have planned for us, where we'll all look alike, and I think we'll all have the same first name. And what else will happen there with it? When the wonderful day when Democrats finally regain control of government and bring peace and harmony and good manners back to the citizens of the United States and Webster County. You never like to get drawn into these things when I go off like this.
I'm starting to draw back right now.
I can see you doing it over
looking where the door's at.
Where's the door? Oh, every now and then I just burst it. Just comes out. Just comes out. Anyway, Steve Peterson's our guest, and Steve is with the Webster County Farm Bureau. He's a past president of the Webster County Farm Bureau. And this portion of the program brought to you by the Webster County Farm Bureau. How are the crops looking anyway? I mean, you haven't had really the weather that you wanted in August.
We have and we haven't. There's spotty parts of the county. You know, we've been getting some. Luckily, we haven't had a lot of severe weather through the area.
By severe weather, you mean
hail, high winds. That's definitely something we don't look forward, to this time of year. But we have. There are some dry areas of the county. You know, you can see just on my drive up today from Slifer, there's some areas that are a lot drier than others. On my farm, I've got a couple nice timely little rains in the last 2 weeks, so I'm sitting pretty good. I'm still I mowed my grass again yesterday, so still plugging away. That's always a good thing in August. Maturity-wise of this crop is kind of it's definitely different this year. Going off of heat units, and we measure heat units. The formula is the high temperature minus the low, or the high temperature plus the low temperature. You divide that in half and divide it by 50, and it's this formula. And you cap the bottom at 50 and the top at 86, and it's a whole deal. But we keep track of these heat units, evidently. And this kind of weather that we're having right now, while it is beautiful outside right now, I'm loving having the windows open and not running the air conditioner.
Oh, yeah.
My pocketbook loves it, too.
You bet.
This is not necessarily what we really need for the crop right now. A full season corn, which just reference that, it's a later maturity corn. If it was planted, in my case, in April, I'm still about 400 or 500 heat units away from maturity. Basically, in a nutshell, that would mean if we're going to have weather like this, now it is supposed to be a little warmer on Thursday, but for the most part, we need basically weather like Thursday, and a lot of, just good weather, and I'm going to need all of September just to get to maturity.
You might get it. I don't know.
That's potential. Now, you throw a monkey wrench in this. There was a lot of corn planted in this area in June. So
was there a lot of corn planted in June?
Quite a bit, more than you think. I've talked to a couple guys today that said they had June or at least June planted beans and some real late May planted corn, and depending on the maturity that they planted, we're still a good ways away from that corn maturing. Even in my case, when I say mature, I'm going to need all of this week and all of September to reach maturity. That still basically just gets me a bunch of wet corn. Mm-hmm. Then I need dry down days after that. When corn reaches its physical maturity, it's about 30% moisture roughly. And we need corn probably around under 20% and closer to 18% to even attempt to try to store it. But we sell all of our corn about at 15% moisture. So there's a lot of cost in drying that corn down. All the bushels we sell on the market are all figured at between 15 and 15.5% moisture.
But if it stays dry and we don't get any rain, anyway, it doesn't look like there's much rain in the forecast.
Not much rain, but the moisture is in the kernels.
Yeah.
So basically right now, corn equivalent to a lot of viewers out there would be equivalent to really old sweet corn.
Yeah.
That would be probably the best way to put it. It's in what we would call a milk stage. If you press on the kernel, it's basically full of water. It's termed as milk, and maybe early dent, and that's when the moisture starts leaving the kernels and they start producing dry matter or starch. And so we've got a pretty lengthy road. In a normal year, we could see some corn come out in the first 2 weeks of September on some of the early maturing varieties that were planted for.
You mean you go out and get it?
Yeah, they go out and combine.
Yeah.
That's actually not that uncommon in this area to see a few fields here or there.
I almost said you'd get out the corn picker. God, I can't. I got that in my head, that corn picking stuff, and I can't get it out.
There
hasn't been a corn picker around for.
Oh, there's a few around here.
Oh, there's still a few around.
Still a few around here.
What, 2-row, 4-row corn pickers?
Corn pickers. I know several guys that they still pick some for they have small herd of cattle, and they still pick off a few loads each year for feed and whatnot. There was there's a lot of it. There's more than you think out there. So,
all right.
And in certain parts of the, I think you get up in the northeast part of the state, I think you'll find some more pickers too. And there's modern corn pickers. I haven't seen any seed corn picked yet. That's picked with modern day corn pickers, big 12-row pickers, and they tend to pick it when it's really wet. And
why is that? Why do they do that?
I think they have less damage in handling, and then they control the dry down exactly how they want. So the seed corn fields.
Where does our corn go? I think we've hit on something here. Where does the total corn crop go? I mean, does it go to feed? Does it go to seed corn? If it goes to seed corn, why?
For easy figuring, in the last few years, we've had between a 15 billion bushel corn crop.
Yeah.
This year it's a little argumentative. A lot of us think we're going to be at a 13 million. Rough figuring, about 5 million bushels goes towards feed.
Yeah.
About 5 million goes towards ethanol.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of a misnomer about the ethanol, and I've argued that this is calculated wrong, is when you produce ethanol, about a third of the corn that you use to produce ethanol, its mass actually comes back into the feed market under what's called a distiller's grain. That actually is not calculated in the feed side of things. So once it goes to ethanol, it's just counted as ethanol. The distiller's grain.
The distiller's grain is an after product.
Is a byproduct, a co-product of the production of ethanol, but it actually is used in the feed side of the equation too. So some of the 5 billion bushels roughly going into the ethanol actually does go into the feed side. It's just not counted that way. So, and then there's also about I believe 2 to 3 million that's used in food products, corn starches and things like that. And then usually we have a carry out anywhere from 1 billion to 2 billion bushels on the carry out. So that's kind of a real rough view of how you allocate 15 billion bushels. Some of the talk is right now, we have a fairly large carry out in these last USDA reports, is basically how big. We're arguing right now if it's going to be closer to a 13 billion bushel crop or a 14 billion bushel crop. It's probably going to be till January till we sort this out, how big this crop really is. And then the other thing that we're starting to hear more traction on the later we get, what would happen if we get an early frost?
Sure.
That's with the corn planting progress that we had this year, and we did have a later than normal in this area.
Sure
but you go out in Illinois and Ohio and Indiana, they really got a late start to what they are. What will happen with a frost is it kind of varies, one, to the crop, and two, where the crop is at. So if you have say a corn crop or cornfield, and it's reached its relative maturity, it's reached maturity, it's black layered, it's just in its dry down phase. Generally what happens when you get a frost, the dry down almost stops. It takes an incredible amount of time then to dry it down. It just, so if corn's at 25% moisture, that corn is going to stay there. Pretty much it's going to just be locked in.
We've had a couple of overnights here in August. It was 55 degrees.
Yeah, I think it was 58 when I got up this morning. Yeah. I mean, it was brisk. It was football weather.
Brisk, yes, it was.
But so an early frost and on soybeans, depending on where they're at in maturity and in their progress, again, it can just stop that plant. So if there's basically a plant full of green beans and you get a killing frost, and a killing frost, we generally associate, I believe it's 28 degrees for 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not certain on the hours, but it's not 32 degrees. It's 28 degrees
mm-hmm.
for a time period. If those beans are not to a point where they're mature, they'll just turn black, and you'll just have black little BBs.
And who needs that? Right?
They're not. It's not a marketable item. And actually, if we had those in our samples when we're tested, because when we take a load to the end or the either a cooperative or an ethanol plant, every load is probed and tested for moisture, and they grade it,
mm-hmm.
and then we would receive dockage or drying charges or fees for foreign matter, or there's a whole schedule of what we can get discounted for. So it's in your best interest. In beans, we want to sell a crop that's at 13%, and we don't want a lot of splits. We want just a good clean sample. Corn, we want a crop that is around. We're going to sell it at 15% or 15.5%. We generally try to get it as close to that as we can, and we also what's called test weight, and that's kind of a relative of how dense the corn
mm-hmm.
is. We want a high test weight. So there's a lot of factors that come into that, but we really need a good warm September.
Mm-hmm.
Is what
you guys do have insurance for an early frost, though, don't you?
That would, in a roundabout way, that's a yes and a no. You don't have insurance for frost directly. That would then fall under our federal crop insurance. And our federal crop insurance basically, for a revenue policy, you're protecting the revenue sold. So if you didn't have a crop to sell for some reason, or if you got rejected or docked, it would work its way through that. So there is a mechanism in the crop insurance that we insure the revenue that the farm will generate. So yet there is, but there isn't. It's not like we do have separate coverage, or some people do. It's an optional deal. For instance, for hail.
Yeah.
That's a standalone policy. Depending on the year, sometimes we will take individual insurance out for fire. That's something that's not covered, if your field catches fire.
Mm-hmm.
In some of those dry years we've had in the last 5 years, you couldn't take fire insurance out fast enough.
I bet.
It's something that we have a small amount of, but when in a high-risk year where we were really dry in the fall, most people I know, they bumped up and took the full coverage on the fire too, because that's a deal that it might not be your fault, but that fire could whisk over from a neighbor, or being on a fire department, it's still amazing how many people flick cigarettes out in the road ditches, and we can try.
Well, that used to be pretty common,
and it still is. It surprisingly still is, and if you can find kind of where that fire starts, you can sometimes trace that right back, and there'll be a perfect V in the ditch. And at the end of that V will be a nice cigarette sitting there.
A lit cigarette.
So that's still a good potential, and that's something you can't predict or
no,
and if the wind's right and everything else, that's a tough call. But yeah, so there's a lot of different options for insurance. Every operation is different. There's a lot of flexibility in what that operation's needs are, it's a complex thing. But here at the end of the year, a lot of those insurance policies, they'll be taking average prices of certain months, and these formulations will start coming into play. But it's just it's a complex thing. When you get into it, you understand it. It works to have a really good agent to work with individuals and
an insurance agent.
Yep, an insurance agent, and they become your friend pretty quickly in falls like this. So there's dates we have to have information in by, and we'll have to certify our yields and different things with the different government agencies also to qualify for these programs.
So, have you ever had to file a claim because of frost or fire or any of those things?
I've never had a frost or a fire. I think the largest I've had hail claims. Hail claims are pretty common, and the last big year for me, I think, was in like 2013 when we had the drought. The yields were reduced, so we weren't up to our 10-year averages. So then the insurance kind of kicks in and can fill in some of that backfill.
Sure. Yeah.
But again, it doesn't make you whole, but it definitely helps pay the bills. That is something that's definitely different than in the farm crisis in the 80s that my parents and grandparents had to go through. They didn't have these revenue protection policies. They didn't exist back then, and these were put in, I think, in the late 2000s, and a lot of it is to again, it's not a windfall, but it definitely can keep a farmer afloat and keep them in business. So we're not seeing some of the turnover like we had in the 80s.
Well, the 80s were a disaster.
Right, and there was a lot of things that were the root cause of that. But this is the tool that, and like I said, in our first segment, bankruptcies are still, they're up 10 to 12% right now. So they are in the rise. It's definitely not a perfect fail-safe, but it does aid in some teeter-totter years, especially with Mother Nature and the unpredictability of what we have for weather. It seems like these years.
Some of the farmers were going nuts in the 1980s. They were buying land like crazy.
Sure, they were,
and they were paying too much, and the bottom fell out.
Yep. And then, like I said, the equity was gone in their farms overnight. And
what caused that? What caused the equity to drop?
I was in high school back then, and honestly, those are some times I lived through them with my parents. It was kind of one of those deals. You didn't ask questions.
Right, yeah. Nobody wanted to talk about it. I'm sure they didn't.
There's a lot of things I wish I would have found more out about, the farming back then. But just like now, my grandpa, the Depression era farmers, boy, they didn't throw anything away. They were a different type of individual.
Yeah.
Versus what even I am today. So I'm to the
completely different.
Yeah, I'm to the adage if I don't use
the world was such a different place.
Right. So just a different environment, and there's a lot of different tools than we have today that they did then, but there's a lot of different decisions we make now too. So it's as far as marketing goes, and right now you're seeing some airplanes out in the countryside flying. They're starting to seed cover crops. That's going to start going on this time of year. So they're flying a lot of those on now. There are some ground rigs, but I think most guys prefer to use the airplanes. It's a little less intrusive to the crop at this stage in the game. And with the cover crops getting more common, we're seeing a lot of the aircraft industry buy the equipment. A airplane with a cover crop seeder was kind of rare 5 years ago around here. Now you're starting to see almost every air crop or airplane crop duster operation have that technology or that equipment because there's getting to be more and more demand for cover crops, and that's kind of the goal of the conservation efforts and different practices that we're putting on. So again, you're already starting to look at the 2020 crop. We haven't taken the 2019 out of the field yet.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's what a lot of the airplanes flying around right now in the country are doing, is they're seeding cover crops.
Seeding cover crops.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep, with airplanes. So
do you do cover crops in your farm?
I have for 4 years, and kind of as an experiment. Right now, this year, I don't have anything planned to go in. I did them for, like I said, I did them for 5 years actually, and trying to experiment to see what works in my operation. Because there's a lot of cover crops is a big topic, and there's a ton of different ones to try. With the late fall that we had last year, there wasn't time. I ran out of time to put them in for the operation I do. So I've got some neighbors that have been trying some different ones, and again, everyone's farming operation is different. The guys that have livestock, it's a completely different program than the guys that don't have livestock. And so there's guys that do nothing but corn on corn, and that's a completely different scenario than a rotational guy. So you get into western Iowa, southern Iowa, where the hills and the erodible ground. Then the cover crops even become more important, and I think have become more common because of the erosion part of it. So it's a work in progress, I would say, on cover crops. But yeah, it's interesting to try them. There's some benefits to them, and but there's some challenges too that they bring. So it's something you got to find on your individual operation, how you can incorporate and make it work.
This portion of the program has been brought to you by the Webster County Farm Bureau. Our guest has been Steve Peterson. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Mike.
This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge.
Michael Devine at AM 1400 KVFD.
Listen to this.
Making radio great again.
It's 3:31 at AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge, 74 degrees. The news is next.
When severe weather threatens, keep it here for the Severe Weather Advisor. Brought to you by Creative Signs and Graphics Fort Dodge. For signs, decals, vehicle graphics, magnets, logos, customized documents, and more. If your business needs it, Creative Signs and Graphics can make it. And a stitch above the rest embroidery, Fort Dodge. Step out in style with quality brands, timely turnaround, and professional service. A stitch above the rest. Embroidery professionals worth finding. Remember, when severe weather threatens, stay with your friends on KVFD.
When is a notebook more than a notebook? When it takes me from creative writing
to traveling the world to report my next story.
Staples is your back-to-school destination. Find all the supplies and inspiration you need. Staying organized is the key to a successful school year. Come in store this week and get Staples Standard View 1-inch 3-ring binders, just $1.92 each. Staples, back to school and beyond. In-store only. Offer ends 8/31/19 while supplies last.
I'm Jimmy Dean, and I'm kind of a morning person. But Jimmy Dean breakfast sandwiches are great for breakfast, good for snacks, hot lunches, whatever melts your butter.
Jimmy Dean breakfast sandwiches. Enjoy them anytime.
Hi, I'm Bruce Fabrizio, inventor of Simple Green, the concentrated cleaner that's perfect for making your auto, RV, cycling, boating, and other sporting equipment look like new again. Visit us at simplegreen.com.
Simple Green. Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
With your KVFD News update, I'm Rob Jones. Dickinson County authorities issued an updated statement regarding Vincent Harvey this morning. Harvey had last been seen Saturday night at Parks Marina in Dickinson County and was officially reported missing Sunday morning. The statement from the Dickinson County Sheriff's Office this morning said that just before midnight last night, one of the deputies noticed an object in the water about 45 yards from the shore. The deputies determined it was a body and contacted the Arnold Parks Okoboji dive team. The dive team recovered the body, and the body was identified as Fort Dodge resident Vincent Harvey. The Fort Dodge Fire Department has added a new member. Cole Campen was appointed and approved by the Fort Dodge City Council at last night's City Council meeting. Campen is a Fort Dodge native who graduated from Fort Dodge Senior High School. After graduating there, he studied sports and recreation management at the University of Iowa. He also studied fire science at Kirkwood Community College in Cedar Rapids. Campen recently earned his certification as an emergency medical technician. During last night's Board of Education meeting, the board was presented with a request to suspend the class size policy for this school year. The suspension in policy would likely affect Cooper Elementary by adding a few more children to some of its classes. Board policy states the maximum number of students for kindergarten through second grade classes is 25 and 27 for third and fourth grade. The Fort Dodge Community School District said the request was a way to avoid being forced to assign students to schools that they live outside the boundaries of. Broadband survey results and the possible move toward improved broadband connectivity were the most prevalent topics at last night's Fort Dodge City Council meeting. Curtis Dean, the president of Smart Source Consulting, presented findings of the recent broadband survey to the council and laid out the future benefits of a new fiber network here in Fort Dodge.
And all these people who are on a fiber network would likely be the upload speeds would be better, and just the download speeds could be better as well, if depending on what level of service you offer.
City Councilman Terry Minke had a question regarding the durability and life expectancy of the fiber network. Here's the dean's response.
The fiber itself, those strands of glass in the ground or on poles, have a lifetime of 30 to 40 years. So you're not going to be investing in a lot of replacing fiber.
For KVFD from the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom, I'm Rob Jones.
Here's the AM 1400 KVFD weatherology forecast. Mainly clear skies and quiet this afternoon with daytime highs approaching 75. West winds 15 to 20 miles per hour. Clear skies tonight, lows level off around 52. Tomorrow, high of 75. Low 80s, Thursday, low 70s, Friday, with a chance for scattered storms. From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Currently, it's 74.
Here's a look at how the markets closed today. September corn down 1.5 at $3.57. December down 2 cents at $3.66 1/4. March down 2 3/4 at $3.77 3/4. May down 3 cents at $3.86. September soybeans down 7.5 at $8.46 1/4. November down 8 cents at $8.59 1/4. January down 7.5 at $8.73. March down 7 1/4 at $8.86 1/4. September wheat closed up 3/4 cent at $4.73 3/4. Soybean meal down 1.50 a ton at $2.91.50. August live cattle down 72 cents at $104.75. October down 1.22 at $99.77. August feeder cattle down a dime at $138.55. September down 2.22 at $133.77. October lean hogs down 57 cents at $63.22. December down 12 at $62.90. I'm Dwayne Murley.
Most schools are back in session across the country, and the USDA has some tips for packing lunches for kids that are safe and nutritious. I'm Julie Harker with Healthy Living on Brownfield. Maribel Alonzo with the USDA Meat and Poultry Hotline says kids are the most vulnerable to foodborne illness, so there are important tips to keep in mind when it comes to packing perishable foods such as lunch meat, eggs, cheese, or yogurt.
They can pack it with at least 2 cold sources. They can use either 2 frozen gel packs. Each one of them has to be 5 by 3 inches. Because we want to make sure that they're still cold enough to keep that food cold. Or they can combine a frozen gel pack with a frozen juice box or a bottle of water.
If packing a hot lunch like soup, she says it's important to use an insulated container.
So they can fill the container with boiling water, let it stand maybe for a few minutes, empty the container, and then they can put the food. They want to make sure that that food is hot when they put it in the container. Just make sure to remind the child to keep it in an insulated container closed until it's lunchtime.
And if packing a child's lunch the night before,
if you're going to put it inside your lunch bag, make sure that you keep it open because you want to have that cold air to circulate around. You can also freeze the sandwiches if you want the night before. You may want to put the mayo and the lettuce and tomatoes in the morning just because they don't freeze well. But that's another good tip just to keep that food cold.
I'm Julie Harker with Healthy Living on Brownfield.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
GOAT, G-O-A-T, acronym, stands for Greatest of All Time. As in, spaghetti sandwiches for dinner? They're my fave. Dad, you're the GOAT.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care would love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
All across the country, people are coming together to speed up what we can learn about health. The All of Us Research Program is calling on 1 million people to join us as we try to change the future of health. For your family, for future generations, for all of us. Visit joinallofus.org and find out how you can become 1 in a million.
Meaningful memorialization starts when loved ones talk about what matters most.
Grandpa, this card asks, what was your favorite vacation?
Well, we didn't go on vacation when I was a kid, but our family did go fishing when we could. My dad could always find the best fishing holes, and he taught me how to clean the fish, too.
You mean you ate the fish you caught?
You bet.
Sharing stories and memories with those who matter most isn't just important today, it will be especially significant when it's time to honor a life lived. Contact Gunderson Funeral Home to learn more about having the talk of a lifetime.
Michael Devine, the Doctor of Truth.
Does anyone have anything they'd like to confess?
At AM 1400 KVFD.
AM 1400 KVFD, the voice for Dodge. I'm Michael Devine, and as always, we're going to tell the truth, make it matter, and never be boring. Joining me again today is Dr. Dean Stanzel. How are you, Dean?
I'm doing great, Michael. How are you?
Dr. Stanzel is an economics professor at Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas, and he is with the O'Neill Center. Please explain the O'Neill Center.
Sure. The O'Neill Center for Global Markets and Freedom is in the Cox Business School at SMU in Dallas, and it was established by one of our alums named William O'Neill, who is also the founder of Investors Business Daily newspaper. We study the impact of competitive market forces on freedom and prosperity in the global economy, and our website is o'neillcenter.org. That's O-N-E-I-L.
Some of you know that Dr. Stanzel has been a long-time contributor to this program, and as a matter of fact, he's mentioned a few times that early in his career, he worked for the Cato Institute, and the Cato Institute was founded by the Koch brothers, David and Charles Koch. Now, just in the last week, David Koch has passed away at the age of 79, and liberals are rejoicing. Bill Maher, who's a funny guy, but still just a toad, Bill Maher has been talking about how glad he is that David Koch passed away, because he supported financially conservative causes, actually libertarian-leaning causes, not even Republican. I mean, he supported the Republican Party, but he was a libertarian-leaning man, as was his brother and father, and a number of members of his family. He also did a lot of good in the world, and Dr. Stanzel, you know more about that than I do.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, so they started years ago. In 1980, David actually ran for vice president on the Libertarian ticket. And, I think they gradually figured out that the Libertarian Party has got the deck stacked against them. And so they did, of course, over the years, start supporting Republicans selectively, though. I mean, not in a knee-jerk way. They did not support Trump, for example, and they have actively campaigned against some kind of anti-growth, anti-freedom Republicans in the past. But anyhow, he did a lot of David, as distinct from Charles, his younger brother, older brother actually, gave a lot of money to, because he suffered from prostate cancer, which is what led to his death eventually. He supported cancer research. He gave a lot of money, and he lived in New York, and he gave a lot of money to the local arts community. And both of them, Charles and David, have done big things in recent years to support criminal justice reform, which is an issue on which those on the left are in strong agreement with them, and some on the right. But it's there was a nice piece in the Wall Street Journal by a guy that runs one of these, kind of criminal justice reform groups on the left, and how he was focusing on how, the important thing is that one of the things David and Charles also illustrate is how it's possible to cooperate even when you disagree on other things, right? So just because those on the left disagree with the Kochs on some economic policy issues. That doesn't mean this guy, should be his death should be celebrated. It's really disgusting.
Well, it's another shocking sign of the depravity that the left has sunk to. There's no other you cannot celebrate a man's death who worked hard his entire life and arguably made the world a lot better in his time on Earth, and then celebrate it if he were some sort of evil person because he disagreed with you politically and contributed money to causes that you do not support. That's what we do in the United States of America. We rally around a cause that we support and we believe, and we support it with our time and effort. Now, that's what David Koch did. End of story. You won't see George Soros being crucified anywhere. And by the way, George is pretty greedy himself. So if you want to hang greedy around David Koch's neck, you better look at your liberal hero over there, Soros. But I could carry on about this the rest of the afternoon. But Dr. Stanzel has sent me kind of an interesting topic, really, other than David Koch. A friend of yours, I understand, has written a small book proving that socialism sucks and that their beer is worse. Can you explain this a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So Bob Lawson is the director of the O'Neill Center and an economist who's worked with the Fraser Institute on the Economic Freedom of the World Index for many years, from the beginning, actually. And he is a friend. And another economist out of Texas Tech, Ben Powell, he and Bob got together a few years ago and got this idea to write a book about socialism, and to do so by traveling to socialist countries and making observations on the economy, but also through the lens of essentially trying the local beer. And so it's a nice, accessible book. You don't need to be an economist to read it to understand it, and it's done in a humorous way. It's not it's not an academic tome, and they were on Fox News last night, interviewed on the Mark Levin show. But anyhow, one of the stories that they tell is about Venezuela. And so, Venezuela is a socially government-run economy, and which means, of course, everything's produced by the government, including the beer. And so, a couple of years ago, I think it was, or maybe even more recently than that, they basically ran out of beer because the politicians who run the economy didn't allocate enough money to the brewers, and so they didn't have enough money to buy the barley and the hops that they need.
I would say that's grounds for revolution.
Yeah, exactly. So what they did, they were a little bit leery about actually going to Venezuela. They went to, I think it's Colombia, right across the border, and they spent some time on the border. And they did actually walk across the bridge into Venezuela and started getting some funny looks because they're pale white folks and clearly kind of stuck out as not belonging. But they talked to a lot of people who were coming across the bridge from Venezuela, walking across to buy goods, because essentially there's nothing. And one of the gentlemen they asked, why are you leaving Venezuela? He said, because there's nothing there, right? They come across these big carts and things to buy the stuff they need to live, and then push it back across the border. It's a sad story for the people of Venezuela who are living under these kind of tyrannical socialist policies, and they're really suffering in a way that I think a lot of times gets lost in the shuffle of political debates.
Well, the Cuban military intelligence is surrounding the leader, Maduro, of Venezuela. And the Cuban regime has, or communist and socialist regimes in general, have very little concern about the people they claim to serve. Let's not forget the first People's Republic leader was Joseph Stalin, and his history was... If you don't know anything about Joseph Stalin and the old Soviet Union, read anything by Robert Conquest, who was a great chronicler of how the Soviet Union under Stalin was built. It's a frightening story. Anyway, our guest is Dr. Dean Stanzel, and Dr. Stanzel is a libertarian at Southern Methodist University and an economist, of course. And we're talking about a great book, Socialism Sucks. By the way, it's for sale on Amazon, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it moved after being on this Fox News show last night. They bumped up to like number 5 overall for books, bestsellers. They were number 1 in communism and socialism books, ahead of the Communist Manifesto. Number 1 in beer books, ahead of
beer books,
some serious beer books. But yeah, you get these little spikes in rankings when you're on TV, of course. But overall, it's been well reviewed, and like I said, it's a humorous book. It's a book that has some important lessons to be taught, but you learn them in an enjoyable way. And I haven't finished it myself, but there are chapters on Sweden, Venezuela, Cuba, North Korea, China, Russia, and Ukraine, Georgia, the country Georgia, and then back in the USSA. Anyhow, but yeah, I've really enjoyed whatever. I haven't finished it, but reading it so far. So
I would think if we started having bad beer in the United States, that would be a real cause for getting into the streets. I mean, we have too many committed beer drinkers. By the way, on my Facebook page, I have the Fox News post that Dr. Stanzel sent me. There's a short video in there from the Mark Levin show featuring economists Robert Lawson and Benjamin Powell. And they're talking about the differences between capitalism and socialism.
Sure, and one of the advantages of capitalism is that we get variety, right? So one of the things they discovered across the various places they visited is there was basically one or two, country beers produced in that country, and they kind of tasted the same. Kind of like maybe 50 years ago when it was. Well, that's not true. There were a lot more in the U.S., but I think of growing up as like Bud and Miller and Coors, and all kind of tasting the same. No offense if those are sponsors, I hope. But yeah, we have a lot of variety here in this country, and the craft brewing industry is booming.
Oh yeah.
But it is also highly regulated, and the big boys do what they can to keep them down with the distribution rules and all sorts of things that make it harder for these guys to be successful. But they persevere and they continue to succeed. And so yeah, as a craft brewing craft beer advocate myself, I enjoy the variety I get, and I wouldn't want to live somewhere like Venezuela.
No, I don't think I would either.
For a variety of reasons.
So do you think, Dean, nuking a hurricane is good public policy?
Oh my God, that was funny. I saw the headline and I read it to my kids, and they were like, "What is going on?"
Well, I wonder if he was just joking around.
I think it probably. I didn't read the story. I probably, but nevertheless, it's a sign of the kind of shoot first, ask questions later mentality.
Get the clicks, buddy.
Yeah,
get the clicks online, and it's your newspaper. And
hey, by the way, on that, related to that, the one of the things I sent you was one of Dan Mitchell's articles on. It's called the IEEPA. Anyways, it was when Trump last week said to the U.S. companies, basically ordering them to get out of China.
Right.
Another case where you kind of shoot first, ask questions later, and one of the things that I saw in there is that the Washington Post bureau chief called Trump out for criticizing socialism, but acting like a socialist in the sense of ordering these companies around. I mean, technically that's not correct, but yeah, I mean, you've got a government saying to business, we're going to tell you where you can locate your operations. I mean, that's not a good precedent. And what the story Dan tells in this article is that there are some scary potential here in terms of the way this IEEPA, and I can't remember what that stands for, the way it's written. He may actually be able to do some damage here in terms of forcing these guys to make some changes.
You're talking about companies doing business in China right now?
Right,
okay.
Exactly. It's the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, and Dan describes it as a blank check.
Well, I believe it. I read a little bit about that. That's our political class at work once again. They did institute that law, but the idea was that it would be used only in time of national emergency or war, not as a policy during a trade war. Of course, they forgot to add that, so here we are.
Sure, and they don't technically define what constitutes a national emergency.
No, that's right.
Well, in that sense, they can call anything they want a national emergency. I mean, obviously, it's got to pass some sort of sniff test. I guess someone could do something, but ultimately, it seems like they've got a lot of leeway to maybe do some things that would not be good for the economy, for the notion of economic freedom.
By the way, the post with Dan Mitchell that Dr. Stanzel was just talking about is also on my Facebook page under International Liberty. You'll see a short clip from Fox Business News of Dan Mitchell discussing, what Dr. Stanzel was just talking about. So, whatever Dr. Stanzel sends me and we talk about here usually winds up on my Facebook page, which is AM 1400 KVFD. So, yeah, I'm sure that you're a little upset over Trump's idea to just order business to get out of a country. I don't think I've ever heard that before.
No, it's I think it's unprecedented, and I hope it just kind of goes away. It's definitely problematic, and look what happened since we last spoke last week. The Chinese now are kind of hitting back, right? Responding to our increases in import taxes with their own, and the president actually used the term import tax or taxes on imports, which I think is a first, because when you call them tariffs, I think for some people it's like, oh, it's just this tariff thing that someone else pays. But,
right.
But he acknowledged in one of his, it was probably a tweet, I don't know, I saw something about it yesterday, that these are actual taxes. And so a couple people got from two different sources. A couple who have done the calculations on the actual size of these tax increases. And so that it works out to, if you put it out over 10 years, which is the way they do the numbers on, like, the tax cut, for example, it works out to a $1.2 trillion tax increase, which is about 80% of what the Trump tax cut is supposed to provide. So we're getting close to completely offsetting the at least the dollar value of the income tax cut from 2017. With all of these tariffs, and part of the issue is, and I know you and I disagree on tariffs, but part of the issue is that the tariffs, because they raise prices for consumers, they do tend to hit not just people at the top, but people of all income levels, and they do tend to be a little more burdensome to lower and middle income consumers. So it's kind of shifting the burden in that sense, in a way that's you would think the left would be against, but I saw Bernie Sanders kind of doubling down and saying, I think it's responding to a question maybe, that of course he would use tariffs if he's elected president. So Bernie and Donald are in agreement on some things like that, like protectionism in terms of tariffs, and also with immigration policy, the two main issues you and I argue over. You're right in there with Bernie and Trump on those issues.
Well, I will point out the failures of capitalism as I see it. I mean, I understand you're an advocate, and you're not exactly in favor of wealth distribution or anything like that. But one of these days we are going to have a conversation about the concentration of wealth not only in this country but in the world. And that is a direct result of international trade, like IPP and NAFTA. NAFTA hit this town in the Midwest particularly hard, and I could go on about that, but we're going to stay focused on this. But one of these times we're going to set aside a segment, Dean, and we'll talk about the failures of some of your favorite things.
Okay, and I'll spin it into successes.
I know you're going to. I know you're going to give me consumer choice, but
taking notes already.
but it doesn't do any good if all the It doesn't do us any good if all the consumers with money are in China.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the whole inequality debate is fraught with measurement issues, but globally it's declining, and I'd argue in the U.S. it's not getting any worse. But yeah, like you said, that's a deep topic that we maybe don't want to dive into at the moment, but it's an important one, no doubt, because it really has resonance with voters in a way that stuff like budget deficits and spending growth really, and people just kind of throw up their hands.
Well, personal income in China has risen 30% in 15 years. That's a dramatic, great leap forward. And that hasn't happened in the United States. In some parts of the United States, the reverse is true.
Sure, but they were starting from a very low number. Is the point? When you start with $1, you can get very large percentage increases, and no one here wants to live at income levels in China. I don't think.
I don't. Do you really want to sneeze at a 30% increase like that? 30% increase is a 30% increase.
It's a large percentage, but when you're starting, again, if you're starting at $1 a day or something really low like that, a 30% increase you're still making less than $2 a day. It's right. So it's important, and it's not something to sneeze at. I agree. And good for them that they're
I thought I heard a sneeze.
that that was a cough. That their living standards are increasing, because it gets to the issue you just brought up for later discussion of global inequality, right? So a poor country like China with these large income increases, that reduces the global inequality and helps kind of lift those at the bottom of the income spectrum.
Okay, but I know you don't want to sneeze at this, but I thought I heard you sneeze there a couple of times. So, Socialism Sucks is the name of the book, and we can find that on Amazon, and the authors are Bob Lawson, and the other author is who?
Ben Powell.
All right. Dr. Dean Stansel has been our guest. He's an economist at Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas. As always, Dean, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me on.
This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge.
Come closer. I want your rack. Your great big rack.
Stop dreaming about big racks and put one on your wall. Head for the Iowa Outdoor Store for a full line of accessories for your bow. Bring it in with you, and they'll make sure it's ready for the season. Need a new bow? Then check out the new Hoyt Carbon RX3, the aluminum helix, and the Matthews Vertex bow. They even have entry-level bows starting at just $299. Make your big rack dreams come true with help from the Iowa Outdoor Store at the junction of Highway 7 and 169, Fort Dodge.
This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. Good afternoon. It's 4 o'clock. City Manager David Feard coming up.
For exciting Panther sports, keep it right here on your home for University of Northern Iowa sports in North Central Iowa. The voice of Fort Dodge, KVFD, Fort Dodge.
An opioid offer. I'm Rich Dennison, Fox News. Purdue Pharma offering billions to settle lawsuits of the company's involvement in the marketing of opioids a day after an Oklahoma judge ruled Johnson & Johnson should pay millions for its opioid marketing. Fox's Jessica Rosenthal joins us live.
Some media reports said Purdue Pharma was offering $10 to $12 billion to settle more than 2,000 lawsuits. Now Purdue says in a statement that while they are prepared to defend the company vigorously, they see little good coming from years of litigation and appeals. Purdue makes the painkiller OxyContin. In the case of Johnson & Johnson, a judge in Oklahoma said the company engaged in false and dangerous marketing. Purdue has been open to settlements along the way, previously settling cases in Oklahoma for nearly $300 million, Rich.
Jessica, Iran's president backpedaling on possible talks with President Trump.
In a speech in Tehran, Rouhani saying, unless the U.S. lifts sanctions, we will not witness any positive development. He said if someone just intends a meeting to be a photo opportunity, that is not possible. The Trump administration has imposed waves of sanctions on Iran since the U.S. withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal last year.
Fox's Simon Owen in our European bureau. 16 women who had accused Jeffrey Epstein of sexually abusing them speaking out today at a hearing on the dead millionaire's sex trafficking case in a New York federal courtroom. Fox's Brian Yennis.
For some of these women, it was the first time they spoke publicly about their abuse and the first time they met other accusers. Now, though these women were robbed of the chance to face Epstein one-on-one in court because of his suicide, many were thankful that Judge Richard Berman gave them a chance to speak out.
The hearing was called after prosecutors asked charges against Epstein be dropped after his suicide while in federal custody. The judge not yet ruling on that motion. America is listening to Fox News.
Summer's ending, and savings are back in business with Dell's Labor Day sale. Small businesses can save up to 40% on select business computers with Intel Core processors, plus free shipping on everything, including a wide selection of thousands of top-brand electronics. Give our specially trained small business technology advisors a call. They can help you find just the right tech to fit your business with Labor Day savings. Visit Dell.com/business deals or call 877-BUY-DELL. That's 877-BUY-DELL.
Ah, the bull elk's bugle, one of nature's most wondrous sounds. That is not a bull elk, that's Kim. Her RV sewage tank is spewing all over her camper. Way, way out in the middle of elk country. Yep, there's an elk. And that's Kim. It's wild out there. When it gets too wild, Progressive has your RV covered. Quote today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
American stealth aircraft making a surprise deployment to Europe, a move likely intended to send a message to Russia.
3 nuclear-capable U.S. Air Force B-2 stealth bombers from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri have deployed outside Oxford, England. A statement from the Air Force says the deployment is meant to, quote, confront a broad range of global challenges. The statement did not mention Russia by name, but comes days after Russian President Vladimir Putin said he would respond to the U.S. testing a ground-launched cruise missile earlier this month. The Pentagon has increased its number of surprise deployments to keep potential adversaries off guard. At the Pentagon, Lucas Tomlinson, Fox News.
Connecticut Democratic Senator Chris Murphy says Russia has denied him a visa to enter the country. The member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee says he planned to take part in an upcoming bipartisan congressional trip to Russia. Republican Senator Ron Johnson also says he was denied a visa. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer restated his opposition to President Trump inviting Russian President Vladimir Putin to next year's G7 summit in the U.S. Former Google engineer Anthony Lewandowski facing 33 federal charges, accused of stealing trade secrets about self-driving vehicles from the company, then selling them to Uber.
A forensic investigation revealed that on or about December 11th, 2015, Lewandowski downloaded to his Google computer approximately 14,000 Google files.
U.S. Attorney David Anderson, Lewandowski's attorneys maintain their client's innocence. Some would-be robbers targeted the wrong victim in Chicago. Police say an adult and a teenager attacked 26-year-old Claire Quinn earlier this month, attempting to steal her cell phone. Turns out Quinn's a Chicago Golden Gloves boxing champion and punched one of the men with one fist while holding her purse and cell phone with the other. The adult was arrested. I'm Rich Dennison, and this is Fox News.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
With your KVFD News update, I'm Rob Jones. Dickinson County authorities issued an updated statement regarding Vincent Harvey this morning. Harvey had last been seen Saturday night at Parks Marina in Dickinson County and was officially reported missing Sunday morning. The statement from the Dickinson County Sheriff's Office this morning said that just before midnight last night, one of the deputies noticed an object in the water about 45 yards from the shore. The deputies determined it was a body and contacted the Arnold Parks Okoboji dive team. The dive team recovered the body, and the body was identified as Fort Dodge resident Vincent Harvey. The Fort Dodge Fire Department has added a new member. Cole Campen was appointed and approved by the Fort Dodge City Council at last night's City Council meeting. Campen is a Fort Dodge native who graduated from Fort Dodge Senior High School. After graduating there, he studied sports and recreation management at the University of Iowa. He also studied fire science at Kirkwood Community College in Cedar Rapids. Campen recently earned his certification as an emergency medical technician. During last night's Board of Education meeting, the board was presented with a request 27 for 3rd and 4th grade. The Fort Dodge Community School District said the request was a way to avoid being forced to assign students to schools that they live outside the boundaries of. Broadband survey results and the possible move toward improved broadband connectivity were the most prevalent topics at last night's Fort Dodge City Council meeting. Curtis Dean, the president of Smart Source Consulting, presented findings of the recent broadband survey to the council and laid out the future benefits of a new fiber network here in Fort Dodge.
And all these people who are on a fiber network would likely be the upload speeds would be better, and just the download speeds could be better as well, depending on what level of service you offer.
City Councilman Terry Minke had a question regarding the durability and life expectancy of the fiber network. Here's the dean's response.
The fiber itself, those strands of glass in the ground or on poles, have a lifetime of 30 to 40 years. So you're not going to be investing in a lot of replacing fiber.
For KVFD from the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom, I'm Rob Jones.
Here's the AM 1400 KVFD weatherology forecast. Mainly clear skies and quiet this afternoon with daytime highs approaching 75. West winds 15 to 20 miles per hour. Clear skies. Tonight, lows level off around 52. Tomorrow, high of 75. Low 80s. Thursday, low 70s. Friday, with a chance for scattered storms. From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Currently, it's 74.
Blue Ribbon, Pelham Waters, your water pro since 1949.
Who would have thought there'd be entire aisles devoted to bottled water, and that people would buy more water than pop? I'm Brian with Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters here in Fort Dodge. Spring water, drinking water, mineral water. There's so many choices, and we're proud to offer you them all. From our own refreshingly pure drinking water to ultra-pure Mountain Valley spring water, Blue Ribbon Pelham's is your complete water store.
In a world where the open road is everyone's terrain,
Hey, Randy, everybody's here. Let's go.
a special group of people are asking one question.
Hey, do you think they see us?
Coming soon to a mirror near you. Motorcycles. Looking twice could save a life. Share the road with motorcycles. Presented by the Iowa Department of Public Safety, Governor's Traffic Safety Bureau.
Every month after paying my bills, I used to wonder if I'd have enough money left to buy groceries. Sometimes I did. A lot of times I didn't. Then I learned about 211. It's the number seniors can call for help finding food. With their help, I found a food pantry near me. Now I don't have to wonder if I'll be able to afford groceries because there's plenty of food for everyone. Call 211 for help finding healthy food near you.
Funded by USDA's Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP.
If you don't listen to him, you suck.
He's sneaky, but he's right.
Michael Devine at AM 1400 KVFD.
Okay. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. I'm broadcasting live from the climate controlled room here on 2nd Avenue North and 10th Street. I've had worse jobs, believe me. Joining me now in not sucking is David Fierk, city manager. Way to go, David.
Yeah, we haven't gotten to the show yet.
No, we haven't. We might suck,
Yeah.
I guess. I should hold up. We will be judged as to whether we suck or not around 4:30, so there you go. But I don't think we're going to. We're going to be all right. And we have some important things to talk about today. Broadband, of course, being first and foremost.
Mhm.
I know I should have gone to the city council meeting last night, but I didn't because I was lazy. But I want you to know, by the way, that the mayor stood up for you. He would not allow me to hang on the Drago nickname on you. You know, the guy that beat up Rocky in Rocky 5 or whatever it was.
Dolph Lundgren.
Dolph Lundgren, right? Yeah, I thought you looked like a
Rocky
kind
3.
Of yeah, was it Rocky 3?
Yeah.
Okay. So the only one I really liked was Rocky 1. You know.
No, it wasn't Rocky 3. Rocky 3 was the one with Mr. T.
Yeah, that's right. Clubber
right.
Lang. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a pretty good one.
That
And
was a good one.
Which one was Hulk Hogan in? Was that?
Yeah, he had that cameo appearance in that one.
He did. He
'cause,
body slammed Rocky,
yeah.
which was great.
Yeah, that's a blast from the past. Remember that?
Oh,
Movie.
yeah.
It might have been Rocky 4 or 5. What I think maybe Rocky 4.
Who knows? We're at Rocky 12 now. I
Yeah.
have no idea. There was another Rocky just a few years ago. Sylvester Stallone was 60. He's 60
Yeah,
years
but
old.
wasn't he trying at that point trying to like coach Apollo Creed's kid? Or
I think he
something like
actually
that?
got in the ring. You know, Sylvester Stallone. You know, he's an actor. Those guys are a little vain. He had to take his shirt off, show that he was still had a ripped bod at the age of 60. Actually, I thought he looked like a 60-year-old man. Having been a 60-year-old man, I know what that looks like. So there we go. But anyway, the mayor was sticking up for you. He said, "No, you don't look for Dre." I don't know. No, he tried to tell me you looked like the guy that was an Aquaman or something. And I thought, God, you city guys stick together.
The
for
guy in
God's sake."
Aquaman.
Yeah, you know, the Jason Momoa or whatever his name
Oh
is.
yeah, yeah. My wife would like that if I looked more like
Yeah,
him.
wouldn't that be? I think we could all say that. Our wife, every woman in town, if their boyfriends or husband looked like Jason Momoa, they would be thrilled by that.
Big and beefy and hair like that.
Oh, yeah.
I am a long way. I'm decades from hair like that.
Oh yeah, I could never do it. I could have never done it. Anyway, City Manager David Fierk is our guest. You have a question or comment for the City Manager? It's 515-955-1400. You know, let's have real questions. Nothing like "Why do you suck?" or anything like that. We used to get those every now and then for the mayor. Some guy'd want to argue with the mayor for 15 minutes.
Uh-huh.
Of course, Matt liked to argue with him too. You know. Anyway, broadband, there's a rumor floating around our area that the city, Growth Alliance, and a few select businesses have a different type, faster internet than is available to consumers here in Fort Dodge. And sometimes a provider will do that. They will come into a town and say, listen, we'll give a few select business or city government or whatever a little bit faster internet if you give us a semi-monopoly on services so we can charge the crap out of your citizens. Do you have a faster internet over at the city than is available?
Actually, our internet, and we get internet and telephone through MediaCom.
Right.
So, no, there is another company in town. The name is Arion. Arion they are a high-speed fiber company. They are not the type of company that in their business plan serves residential areas or serves entire communities, but they will serve businesses that are high-volume customers that need a lot of data and will pay more for it.
Where are they out of?
Oh gosh, I don't know. They have a network all over Iowa. It looks like our interstate system. I mean, there's
Arion with an A or O?
Yeah, I think it's with an A. And I've seen the image of their system. So they basically have these big fiber networks that connect all the big cities, and they connect to Fort Dodge. They serve some businesses downtown, from what I understand. I can't verify, but I think they serve like a publishing company on Central. They go right by the Growth Alliance, so the Growth Alliance tapped on. I think they went right by the county, so the county tapped onto the system. We are not on it. We're using MediaCom for both our data and voice.
Where are you using MediaCom?
Because that was a decision we made, is we thought it was best to use MediaCom. And then we have Frontier as backup.
That's not really an answer, but thank you anyway.
Well, I mean, if you're asking why we didn't choose Arion, I don't think they went right by our front door, and I don't know if they could provide that.
They're not going by your front
I don't know if they provide the voice over IP, because we went to a different phone system, and I wasn't the technical expert that said, here's the best thing we ought to do is go with MediaCom.
Who was the technical expert for the city?
Our IT guy.
Okay, and
that's Tyler Shadegg, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, that was part of that, making the suggestion. There was a couple alternatives given, and MediaCom just seemed like the best choice for us.
All right. But this is Arion is actually in our city.
Yeah.
Am I pronouncing the name correctly?
I think so, Arion, yeah.
Is in our city but doesn't serve residential customers. That's odd.
No, they do not. They serve, because their business model is to serve higher volume customers. There's several fiber lines that move back and forth through the city that are in our.
Are they available to residential customers?
No. I don't believe there's any fiber to the home service right now for residential customers.
That's something that we want to get.
That's basically what we're looking at the city level is fiber optics all the way to the home.
Right, that's what we need.
We're looking at that for all residential customers and potentially business customers too. That would just be fiber all the way in.
So we have a vote this fall.
Yes.
And that vote will determine what?
So the vote, all it does is give the city the permission to establish a broadband telecommunications utility. The state legislature years ago said that if cities want to establish it, they need to do it by referendum. And so it's on the ballot just to ask the voters, should the city have the permission to set up a broadband utility? Now, whether we do or not is still yet to be known. And it may be something where the council hasn't made a decision even by November 5th, whether that's the best course of action or not. Because we're in this pre-feasibility study, and that's where, we've done the surveys, we've done some speed tests. We still have yet to finish up the analysis of what the system could cost, and then from that would be the pre-feasibility to say, okay, here's what the system's going to cost. Based on our consumer research, here's how many consumers might switch over if you have a pricing model that's in line with everyone else.
Well, if you have a higher speed and a better pricing model, which shouldn't really be that difficult, and most important to cover the whole city, MediaCom has trouble covering the town.
Well, they cover the town, but they don't have fiber to each house. They have fiber to nodes in the neighborhoods, and those nodes then go by copper to the various houses. So, our system would be designed, or the system, I should say, would be designed to be fiber to the home. So, having the referendum, it needs to be said that just because the referendum passes doesn't necessarily mean we're going to go out and build a municipal-owned fiber optics system.
Well, I hope we take an honest look at that, because the providers we have, I don't, and that would be primarily. I mean, the providers that we have for residential customers are DirecTV and MediaCom. I don't think Dish has.
But Frontier can provide high-speed data.
I guess they can. Yeah, yes, they can.
So I mean, one of the.
But there's still a phone line, right?
Yeah, there's still a phone line. But so there's really three ways. Three kind of. I say we'll come at some point. We're going to come to a fork in the road, and one of the actions could be do nothing. But I doubt that's where we're going to go. But the decisions could be work with a local provider to improve the broadband network to the point where it meets the demands of the customers. That could be a partnership. Or if that doesn't seem like it's going to work with a competitive, a new private utility that would be interested in coming to the system. And that could be a private investment or a public-private partnership, however that might work. And if either of those two don't seem feasible, well, then we would probably look at building our own utility.
And we don't know how much that is right now.
I couldn't tell you right now.
Mm-hmm. When will that information be available?
I think the plan is to have the report done probably, I'd say 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay.
Have the data kind of reviewed and clarified and estimated at what the cost would be.
Now, I'm not going to see the cost and the plan talked about in the Fort Dodge Messenger tomorrow, am I, David?
Not attributable to me, Mike.
You and Bimrick, I tell you. Oh, we don't know. We better wait till the messenger.
I know nothing.
I know nothing.
So no, and it's just some information that has to get put in a report, and the report, like I said, is that's the final role for Smart Source Consulting, is to deliver that report. And they, Curtis Dean, who was at the meeting, gave a kind of a preliminary report yesterday.
Who was at the meeting?
Curtis Dean. He's the president of Smart Source Consulting, and he's the person that's doing our pre-feasibility study. He gave kind of an interim or preliminary report, and I thought it was important to have that because the council was having the decision on the referendum. And it's also noteworthy to note that they took that vote at this meeting, even though the report isn't 100% done, because anything that's added to the November 5th ballot has to be submitted to the county by August 30th. So with that coming at the end of this week, we needed to have the vote, or we need to have the council pass a resolution now. We couldn't wait till the whole report's done.
Okay.
So
all right.
That's why we did it that way.
Okay. So was this a unanimous vote
yes.
by the council? I never know what they're doing over there at the council sometimes. I never do. But Dean was not there. Dean Hill.
Yeah, he wasn't.
But everybody misses a meeting every now and then. He's usually pretty good about it. What else happened at the city council meeting last night?
Oh gosh, what else did we do? Well, we had the workshop on broadband. We had a workshop on street widths. I know that. And really what that was about is, how do we when we fully reconstruct a street, there are some streets that are kind of really wide in town, some residential streets, and we're bringing them back into a different street width. And just having that discussion with the council is, do they agree with the standards we're using now, which are statewide standards on what your street width should be and whether there should be parking on one side? So do you build a 26-foot wide street with parking on one side or a 31-foot wide street with parking on both sides? What are the pros and cons of that?
Yeah,
and because we've done some streets differently. People had wider streets and now have narrower streets. It's new, but it's narrower, and there's been some residents that have not been real happy with that. So we just started with a discussion on what should be the ideal street width, and really coming out of that wasn't any real change of policy or direction other than communicate better with the people that live on that street, that their street's going to be narrower and that parking's going to be only on one side.
Right.
When we rebuild it. And communicate with the council on what the plan is also for the street. Because obviously once the street's in and people go, hey, that looks narrower, not a whole lot you can do. I mean, you could spend a lot of money to make it wider, but usually at that point, the decisions, we're kind of past the point of changing our mind.
We can see the end of our road construction season coming now. Did we get the construction that we wanted to get done finished? Or will we have it finished?
Here's where I would say we did not. So we initially planned to have the intersections of Central and First Avenue South done this year, but and 15th Street. Sorry, I should have mentioned that too. That project was supposed to be done this year, but it took us a little longer to get some property acquired than we thought, and that kind of held things up. And then it got to a point where it didn't make sense to have a completion time that was this year because we were starting to lose too many months in the construction season. All that would do is really increase your bid prices if you required people to be done that fast.
Mm-hmm.
So there still could be some work done on that, but not the major intersection work. So that was one of the projects that initially we thought we'd have done this year, and it just didn't work out.
Didn't happen.
Which is probably for the better, because either we would have paid a lot or we'd have had construction over winter and temporary streets, and that wouldn't have been fun. Well, I remember we had that on First Avenue North years ago, where we had the winter set in kind of quick, and we were hurting all winter.
We had South 18th tore up down there too for just ever.
Yeah. So other than that, I mean, I think we still have some asphalt work that'll do yet this year, but typically the asphalt plants will stay open till mid-November, so there could still be work done, and all that depends on weather too. And
it does really, having done that work before. Mid-November is about as late as you're going to get, though.
Yeah, we've had a warm fall one year where we got pretty good into November, which is nice.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to have that asphalt at 44 degrees all the time. It can't be below 44; it'll just crumble. Our downtown areas looks kind of scuffed up anymore. We had a major renovation of downtown as far as the streets and sewers were concerned in 1991, which is getting to be quite a long time ago. Is the downtown area scheduled for an upgrade anytime soon? Or
we don't have it scheduled in our CIP, but that is something that is a topic for discussion relatively soon. I think our next council meeting there's going to be a workshop where Main Street's going to talk about
Chris Meyer. You mean
Chris Patrick? Yeah, Chris Patrick.
Chris Patrick. Sorry, Chris, if you're listening. Sorry.
Yeah, we were just talking this week, and the Main Street has been discussing that, hey, maybe time to redo the streetscape on Central and look at that. And it is. I mean, the pavers we've been trying to redo some intersections, but a lot of it is pretty old. It's getting there. And, is there a better way? Is there a different way we should be doing it? We
I don't know if those speed bumps turned out to be quite the
speed bumps.
That's what they were originally. There was a study done at the time.
We didn't put any speed bumps in.
Well, those bump outs.
Oh, the bump outs.
The bump outs. I still refer to them as speed bumps.
Yeah,
but there was a study.
The snowplow drivers. Yeah, because they ram them.
Right, they rammed them all the time. But there was a study out at the time that most pedestrian accidents happened at corners when cars were turning sharp.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So they put these bump outs there to cut down on that sort of thing. Even though we really hadn't had any history of serious injury or fatalities in downtown Fort Dodge. It just seemed cool at the time, I guess. But it didn't seem to be so cool as time went on. The bricks popped out of the sidewalk, and it was all those things.
Yeah, so I think that'll probably be a pretty important topic of discussion is what does that look like on Central in the future? Does it have bump outs? Does it not? Is there another way to have a streetscape feel pedestrian friendly and still not not have bump outs or have things that are easier to maintain?
Even a downtown enclosed mall or something like Mason City has. I keep thinking of Mason City.
Oh, yeah. Well, they have their mall, the regional mall's right there.
It's right there, the South Ridge or whatever it is, The south part of what used to be Federal Avenue was their center, Central Avenue, and they just put a mall at one end and enclosed part of it. And there's still traffic allowed in certain areas, but that's where it looked nice. It looked nice. There's an old story that Ed Breen came up with the idea and gave it to Ken Q, mayor of Mason City at the time. And Ken Q is, by the way, an old television broadcaster. And Q and the Mason City Council implemented Fred Breen's idea for downtown.
Wow. I remember my hometown, Champaign, Illinois, back in the 80s. It must have been the early 80s. They implemented a pedestrian mall. They took one of their major roads right in the center of downtown, and took like 2 blocks or 3 blocks and just closed it and made it like a pedestrian mall. And then they ended up taking it out probably in the late 80s or early 90s. They had
it didn't last
so
that
they
long.
didn't keep it that long.
Well, Champaign's quite a bit bigger town.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, their town, like every other downtown, kind of had its ups and downs and adjusted based on other interests, whether that was, you know, with their big shopping mall going up and how that impacted downtown. I mean, all cities are kind of the same. We deal with similar issues of what is it, what are retail habits and what are shopping habits and other habits of people, and how those change over years and generations, and how do cities adapt to that. And it's always we're always seems like we're chasing the wills of the people. Like, oh, well, you don't want to shop downtown? Okay, now what are we going to do?
Are we still getting a lot of revenue from those parking meters? A lot of people are still grumbling about those parking meters. Don't try to put one in front of... Yes, they're grumbling. Don't try to put a parking meter in front of Daniel Pharmacy, I'll tell you. Don't try it, David.
We'll put parking meters
John will be over here. I'll just walk to work then. I'll fix you.
Well, you should. That's good for you.
Yeah, well, I've been exercising, David. Haven't you noticed? I mean, I've been real powerful build here.
Those arms are getting huge.
Huge.
Yeah.
Guns out. Yeah, here we go. No, I think these guns are just about as good as they're ever going to get. So you think we get enough revenue from those parking meters to justify their existence, or?
Well, it depends on what we're going to do. Yeah, so for now, we're getting enough revenue to justify their existence.
To repair the downtown parking lots,
help repair downtown parking lots.
We're still getting that done.
Yeah. I mean, we actually got a pretty decent amount of money right now if we want to do another one. But we just recently bought the new software, so we're not chalking tires anymore. That it's all going to be.
You're not chalking tires anymore?
Well, I mean, I think we might be right now, but the software, once it gets implemented, we won't have. It's all done by photograph, and we'll be chalking tires, and that'll help be more efficient.
AM 1400 KVFD. Good afternoon. You're on the air with City Manager Furick.
Good afternoon, Mike. I just wonder if you'd have your guest give us an update on the water treatment plant upgrade and what the timetable was for changing our water softeners to handle the lower lower hardness.
Well, thanks. That's a good question. Yeah, we haven't talked about that in a while, and I recently was speaking with our engineering staff, and it looks like we're probably implementing the water like the end of 2020. So and once we get the construction way closer to complete, we'll be able to pin down those timelines. But I would say right now we're over a year off from having the soft water. The plant is under construction. I mean, the foundation and the base is in, but I mean, we're going to probably be scurrying to have the building up by winter time and then do the interior work. But even once it's completed, it'll take a while, like months, to actually roll out the final water product. You don't want to do it all at once. You want to do it in stages and make sure that all the chemistry is still good. So I think by now we're looking at, like, I would say November of 2020 would kind of be the ultimate completion date where we're having a different water quality.
Okay, well, thank you very much. That's what I wanted to know.
You're welcome. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, thank you for the question. And thank you for being here, David.
Yeah.
This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge.
Michael Devine at AM 1400 KVFD.
Listen to this.
Making radio great again.
All right, thanks to City Manager Furick for being here. It's 4:32, degrees at AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. Yes, the news is next. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. I'm sorry City Manager Furick left. Is there something I can do for you?
Oh, okay. Yeah, Mike, I was just curious. I came home and the water lines were marked out on 10th Avenue North, the 1500 block. I didn't know if that had any road construction that was upcoming yet this fall, or what they were doing with that.
I'm sorry David hustled out of here like he usually does. He's got to get back to work, but Matt Bemrick will be here on Thursday. Maybe you can call back.
All right, I'll try that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge.
Did you know when you donate items to the Keon Central, you're helping support DSOC, the local shelter for 20 north central Iowa counties? At DSOC, we support victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, survivors of homicide, and other violent crimes. When you bring your tax-deductible donations to the Key, you support them too. The Key is always accepting clothing, shoes, furniture, kitchen items, household goods, and more. On behalf of DSOC, thank you for your donations to the Keon Central, located at 1030 Central Avenue, Fort Dodge.
I'm Jamie Brundage, owner of Historic Bruce Funeral Home. We're a full-service funeral home with an off-site crematory. At Bruce's, we specialize in pre-arrangements and family support before, during, and after the service. We also offer beautiful memorial items to help you remember your loved one forever. Bruce Funeral Home is proud to be by your side every step of the way throughout the funeral process. Historic Bruce Funeral Home, Fort Dodge.
Warning: if you're buried in debt you can't afford, do not let the credit card companies make you think you have to pay it all back, because you don't. What the credit card companies don't want you to know is that there's actually a way to get debt-free without paying off your entire debt or going bankrupt. If you have $10,000 or more in credit card debt, you now have the right to let us settle that debt for a fraction of what you owe. For free information, call Credit Answers at 800-970-5932. If you're struggling to pay off your debt, do not let the credit card companies make you think you have to. Call Credit Answers now for free information on how to get out of debt faster than you ever thought possible, without debt consolidation or bankruptcy. We offer a guarantee with no upfront fees, so there's no risk. For free information, visit creditanswers.com or call 800-970-5932. That's 800-970-5932.
When a loved one is having a medical emergency, a few minutes can be the difference between life and death. With Iowa facing a health professional shortage, emergency care may be farther away than you think. That's why insurance profits shouldn't matter more than people. Over 117 million Americans depend on air medical transport during an emergency. But insurance companies are refusing to pay for this life-saving service. Call Senators Ernst and Grassley and tell them to support emergency air medical transport, paid for by Alliance for Access to Critical Care.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
With your KVFD News Update, I'm Rob Jones. Dickinson County authorities issued an updated statement regarding Vincent Harvey this morning. Harvey had last been seen Saturday night at Parks Marina in Dickinson County and was officially reported missing Sunday morning. The statement from the Dickinson County Sheriff's Office this morning said that just before midnight last night, one of the deputies noticed an object in the water about 45 yards from the shore. The deputies determined it was a body and contacted the Arnold Parks Okoboji dive team. The dive team recovered the body, and the body was identified as Fort Dodge resident Vincent Harvey. The Fort Dodge Fire Department has added a new member. Cole Campen was appointed and approved by the Fort Dodge City Council at last night's City Council meeting. Campen is a Fort Dodge native who graduated from Fort Dodge Senior High School. After graduating there, he studied sports and recreation management at the University of Iowa. He also studied fire science at Kirkwood Community College in Cedar Rapids. Campen recently earned his certification as an emergency medical technician. During last night's Board of Education meeting, the board was presented with a request to suspend the class size policy for this school year. The suspension in policy would likely affect Cooper Elementary by adding a few more children to some of its classes. Board policy states the maximum number of students for kindergarten through second grade classes is 25 and 27 for third and fourth grade. The Fort Dodge Community School District said the request was a way to avoid being forced to assign students to schools that they live outside the boundaries of. Broadband survey results and the possible move toward improved broadband connectivity were the most prevalent topics at last night's Fort Dodge City Council meeting. Curtis Dean, the president of Smart Source Consulting, presented findings of the recent broadband survey to the council and laid out the future benefits of a new fiber network here in Fort Dodge.
And all these people who are on a fiber network would likely download speeds could be better as well, if depending on what level of service you offer.
City Councilman Terry Minke had a question regarding the durability and life expectancy of the fiber network. Here's the dean's response.
The fiber itself, those strands of glass in the ground or on poles, have a lifetime of 30 to 40 years. So you're not going to be investing in a lot of replacing fiber.
For KVFD from the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom, I'm Rob Jones.
This is AM 1400, KVFD, the voice for Dodge 437. In the weather, our high today was 75 degrees. We're at 71 right now. Overnight, it'll be clear with a low of 51. That's right, 51. So you're getting close to the time of the year where you have to turn on your furnace, but not yet. Tomorrow it's going to be sunny with a high of 75. Thursday, sunny with a high of 83. Friday, sunny with a high of 73. On Saturday, there is a good chance of a thunderstorm, mostly cloudy with a high of 68. On Sunday, it'll be sunny with a high of 75. Labor Day, sunny with a high of 79. Right now, again, 71 degrees at AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. Obituaries this hour brought to you by the historic Bruce's Funeral Home at 923 1st Avenue South, Fort Dodge. You may contact the historic Bruce Funeral Home by calling 515-576-5117 or online at www.brucesfuneralhome.com. Michael Hart of Fort Dodge has died at the age of 70. He passed away yesterday at the Paula J. Baber Hospice Home. There will be a service honoring the life of Michael Hart, 70, when he passed away yesterday, and that'll be at 11 o'clock in the morning Saturday at the First Covenant Church here in town with the Reverend Ellen Redenius officiating. Obituaries this hour brought to you by the historic Bruce's Funeral Home at 923 1st Avenue South in Fort Dodge. You may contact the historic Bruce's Funeral Home by calling 515-576-5117 or online at www.brucesfuneralhome.com. It's 440 at AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge, 71 degrees. With a look at the closing market report, here's Dwayne Murley.
Here's a look at how the markets closed today. September corn down 1.5 at $3.57. December down 2 cents at $3.66 1/4. March down 2 3/4 at $3.77 3/4. May down 3 cents at $3.86. September soybeans down 7.5 at $8.46 1/4. November down 8 cents at $8.59 1/4. January down 7.5 at $8.73. March down 7 1/4 at $8.86 1/4. September wheat closed up 3/4 cent at $4.73 3/4. Soybean meal down 1.50 a ton at $2.91.50. August live cattle down 72 cents at $104.75. October down 1.22 at $99.77. August feeder cattle down a dime at $138.55. September down 2.22 at $133.77. October lean hogs down 57 cents at $63.22. December down 12 at $62.90. I'm Dwayne Murley.
From the Fox Business Network, the major averages closing in the red as hopes for a resolution of the U.S.-China trade fight began to fade, and the U.S. Treasury yield curve inverted further, signaling a possible recession. With the Dow falling 121 points, the Nasdaq down 27, S&P 500 down 9. And two tobacco giants could be reuniting. Philip Morris and Altria are in advanced talks to merge. The potential blockbuster deal comes as the two companies have been looking for ways to diversify their businesses away from relying on cigarettes as fewer adults smoke. Altria spinning off Philip Morris more than a decade ago and has recently made investments in Juul and Canadian pot company Kronos. And Hershey is investing in a sweet deal, buying One Brands, the maker of sweet nutrition bars, for nearly $400 million as food companies continue to target healthier snacks that provide protein. One Brands makes nutrition bars with sweet flavors like blueberry cobbler, cinnamon roll, and birthday cake. With the Fox Business Report, I'm Hillary Barsley.
Do you want to learn to speak a new language but don't have enough time? Then you need to try Babbel, the language learning app that you can try for free right now at Babbel.com. Babbel's lessons are just 15 minutes or less, and you can go at your own pace. You'll be amazed at how easy Babbel makes it. Start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Just download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com now. That's Babbel.com.
When severe weather threatens, keep it here for the Severe Weather Advisor. Brought to you by Creative Signs and Graphics Fort Dodge. For signs, decals, vehicle graphics, magnets, logos, customized documents, and more. If your business needs it, Creative Signs and Graphics can make it. And a stitch above the rest embroidery, Fort Dodge. Step out in style with quality brands, timely turnaround, and professional service. A stitch above the rest. Embroidery professionals worth finding. Remember, when severe weather threatens, stay with your friends on KVFD.
Attention to this important announcement. If you have ever taken prescriptions like Adderall and are concerned about the side effects and high cost, now there's a new all-natural smart pill available that's the closest thing to a safe, real-life, limitless pill. It's so powerful and effective that students, athletes, and execs all want to get their hands on it. It's called Limitless, a Coastline product, and it's truly remarkable. It can help skyrocket your concentration, improve your creative thinking, enhance your memory, and make you feel like a better version of yourself. Call and find out how to get a free bottle of Limitless and experience this firsthand. It's not a question of whether this powerful pill works, but how great it can make you feel. Take it and watch it go to work. Limitless may be the best kept secret available today.
To find out how to get your free bottle of Limitless, call 800-605-4757. That's 800-605-4757. Get your free bottle for a limited time. Call now, 800-605-4757, 800-605-4757.
If you're drowning in IRS tax debt, please get ready to take down this number to take advantage of the new IRS tax forgiveness programs. The IRS has recently hired private debt collection agencies to start collecting your outstanding taxes.
Prior to calling Superior Tax Relief, I owed the IRS $33,000, and my wages had just been garnished. Superior Tax Relief put a stop to the garnishment and was able to resolve my tax problem. I walked away owing close to nothing. I would highly recommend Superior Tax Relief. They saved my life.
We can protect you from the added fees and negotiate your tax liability. Superior Tax Relief can set you free from your tax issues. Call Superior Tax Relief to find out how you can qualify for the Fresh Start program that's now available. Don't hesitate. Call today. Call 800-711-5099. The consultation is free. The information is free. This call could save you thousands. Call 800-711-5099. 800-711-5099. That's 800-711-5099.
What's the secret to high-yielding winter wheat? I am Nicole Heslop with Managing for Profit on Brownfield. Yields in this year's Michigan Wheat Performance Trials are nearly double of what USDA is forecasting for a national winter wheat average. Experts say part of the reason is cooler weather, but high management practices are making a difference. We'll have more right after this.
Here's farmer and businessman James Wood.
We farm about 3,500 acres. There's pipelines everywhere. The contractor working on my property did not have the lines located before he began work, and it resulted on a strike on a natural gas pipeline. Fortunately, no one was hurt, but it could have been much worse.
Never assume the location or depth of underground lines. Always call 811 or visit clickbeforeyoudig.com before you start work. A message from the Pipeline Operators for Ag Safety campaign.
You might not know everyone in your community, but if you did, you'd see that people in recovery from mental and substance use disorders are all around. Reach out for support and begin your recovery journey. Join the Voices for Recovery. Strengthen families and communities.
For confidential information on mental and substance use disorders, including prevention and treatment referrals for you or someone you know, call 1-800-662-HELP. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Surviving the polar vortex has helped researchers discover a malting barley variety ideal for the Eastern Corn Belt. Director of Procurement Whitney Thompson with Origin Malt says a need for local barley for the craft beverage industry led them to work with plant breeders at Ohio State University.
Back in 2014, there was a polar vortex that affected and created a lot of winter kill for cereal grains. And when Dr. Stockinger looked at his plots, there was one variety that stood out, and that was Puffin. And Puffin is a variety that is a germplasm owned by Lima Grain Cereal Seeds. And because Puffin survived and had an 80% survival rate after that polar vortex, and all the other varieties had less than 5%, It was very clear at that point in time that puffin was going to be the starting point for us in terms of a variety to work with.
Origin Malt has exclusive rights to the variety since. She says Ohio once was a prominent barley growing region, but Prohibition took away farmers' markets.
4 of the 5 largest malt houses were in Ohio. There were about 350,000 acres worth of barley that were grown in Ohio, but Prohibition stopped all of that.
She tells Brownfield less than 500 acres of malting barley was grown in the state since 2017. But their company plans to source about 75,000 acres in Ohio and surrounding states within the next 5 years.
We want to be educating our farmers so that they know what is best in order to try and have the most viable malting barley crop possible. And when I initially talk to growers, I'm telling them to consider a high-maintenance wheat. So if they've ever worked with growing a high-maintenance wheat, barley is very similar.
Thompson says research is also finding a 20-bushel yield bump to soybeans in the following rotation.
In the Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, and Pennsylvania regions, you can harvest barley a little bit sooner than wheat, which allows growers to have an even earlier double cropping opportunity with soybeans. As a result, on the back end, the grower tends to see a little higher yield on the soybeans.
The company plans to build their own malt house within the next 5 years. I'm Nicole Heslop with Brownfield.
Michael Devine, the Doctor of Truth.
Does anyone have anything they'd like to confess?
That AM 1400 KVFD.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Apparently we can't handle the truth here in Fort Dodge, Iowa. Apparently we can't handle the truth here in Fort Dodge, Iowa. You know, in the 1980s when my son was preparing for school, we had a conversation, my wife and I, as to whether we should send him to Catholic school. Right about that time, we saw the first incidents of child sexual abuse in the Catholic Church. Now, it's almost routine now. We're numb to it, aren't we? We're numb to it as we're numb to mass murder. But there was a case in Louisiana where a bishop repeatedly transferred a pedophile priest to different parishes around Louisiana, knowing full well the man had repeatedly, everywhere he went, raped children. Bishop Thomas O'Brien in Phoenix in 2003 admitted that he sheltered 50 priests that he knew had molested children in the Phoenix diocese and allowed them to work with children again. Do you remember Howard Fitzgerald? He was a veteran pastor who worked in central and western Iowa for decades, and an investigation revealed he sexually abused minors decades ago. Howard Fitzgerald was the 5th priest to frock for sexual misconduct in the Des Moines diocese alone, and we're not a big state at all. We're not a big state at all. I remember those people from Louisiana back in the 1980s when they realized that they had been betrayed by their church, that they had invested every ounce of emotional and spiritual trust in. I remember they were being interviewed on news programs, and it looked like they were staggering, literally staggering at the thought that higher-ups in the Catholic Church, and if they were like me, they were told as kids in Catholic school, stay within the loving arms of the church. Stay within the loving arms of the church. Well, the loving arms seem to have something else in mind. The loving arms seem to have something else in mind. I sent my son to public school because of child abuse allegations. Because child abuse and the covering up of child abuse is evil. Why can't we say this? Child abuse sexual relations between an adult in authority and children is a great evil. It's enhanced when it happens in religious schools. Didn't come to Fort Dodge, let me tell you. We had a pervert priest, as you recall, wound up over the Marion home with a nice view of St. Edmund School over there. Of course, he had admitted to molesting several children. But the statute of limitations had run out, of course. And he was getting to the end of his life, so naturally, he had to have salvation. So he was removed, and the church took care of him until he was revealed to be here at the Marion home in Fort Dodge, where he was moved again. And I suppose he's under the assumption that he's going to eternity as a blessed man. How can that be? How can that be? Congressman Steve King was in here yesterday defending his comments about incest and rape and the children as a result of that, well, I can't say union, but as a result of those horrific and violent acts. And I told him, he defended, of course, his remarks that human life is sacred, human life is innocent. I agree with him exactly, but the circumstances surrounding their conception was evil, was the darkest evil. Let me say it. The devil himself was involved. And the devil himself is involved in these repeated incidences of the Catholic Church not acting when one of their own is discovered to be routinely molesting children. Now we have this mysterious story that a St. Edmund employee has resigned. St. Edmund President Mary Gibb did not name the employee. Captain Ryan Gruenberg of the Fort Dodge Police Department said police are aware of the allegations against the employee and they're investigating. According to President Gibb, in a letter to the parents, she said the information was provided and it may be some time before the issue is resolved. In other words, let's slow this whole thing down. Maybe people will forget that it ever happened. I guess the employee resigning is all we really need to know. According to President Gibb, again, it's our understanding, I'm quoting, it's our understanding that the investigation is ongoing and may not be resolved for some time. Matters of personnel like this are treated confidentially to protect the privacy of those involved and out of respect for the investigative process. That's wholly inadequate. That's a wholly inadequate response. Here's the adequate response, and this is barely adequate. We have identified someone who was having an inappropriate relationship with a child. We're outraged, and we fired the person. We've notified the Fort Dodge Police Department, and we're hopeful that charges can be brought soon. What's not acceptable is this vague statement and claims of privacy if there has been a crime committed. If President Gibb again wants to be seen as a leader, when we've seen cases of child abuse and child neglect and protection from church officials time and time and time and time and time again, then she should be more forthcoming and stronger than just, well, gosh, something happened. Employee resigned. Don't you feel better? The employer resigned. The investigation is ongoing and may not be resolved for some time. What the hell does that mean? Did something happen or not? You know, this is going to be up to the St. Edmund parents. I hope we got a little bit stronger stuff here in Fort Dodge. But this is, a few years ago, you remember Dr. Thomas Berry, Everybody attached to St. Edmund remembers Dr. Thomas Berry. He was here, a year? Not even that. I saw him on Wednesday night downtown. Dr. Berry said, I want to come on your program on Friday. I got something I want to talk about. That was Wednesday evening at a downtown restaurant. And I said, sure. I was still on the morning shift at that time. Sure, come on in Friday morning, not a problem. I got up early on Friday, of course, to come to work, and I got the paper, and Tom Berry was gone. Tom Berry was out. Anybody know why? There are people in the St. Edmund community that know. But not to make this information public is, again, a pattern of behavior that must be corrected. A pattern of behavior that must be corrected. You cannot treat us like this anymore. You cannot treat any of us this way anymore. You can't just come out and say, well, this is kind of a personal matter. There wasn't. I'm assuming now that by inappropriate relationship between a school employee and a student, I don't suppose they were in the basement somewhere playing video games. I suppose it was something else. Don't keep us in the dark. Don't keep us in the dark. This is not the way to do things in the year 2019 or ever again. It's 5 o'clock. You're listening to KVFD in Fort Dodge, Iowa.
If you're a gearhead or not, you'll enjoy the Under the Hood Car Show every Saturday afternoon from 2 till 4 on the voice of Fort Dodge, AM 1400, KVFD, Fort Dodge.
A possible deal. I'm Lisa Lacera, Fox News. The maker of OxyContin reportedly in discussions to settle lawsuits related to the opioid crisis. Fox's Jessica Rosenthal has more live.
Lisa, one report says Purdue Pharma is willing to offer $10 to $12 billion in a settlement. While the company did not acknowledge the numbers, they did issue a statement saying they are willing to work toward a resolution with states' attorneys general and others. Nearly every state has sued Purdue and the family that owns the company, the Sacklers. Reports indicated the company was considering filing Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and terms of the settlement might even include the Sackler family no longer owning the company. The announcement comes just one day after a judge in Oklahoma ruled Johnson & Johnson engaged in false and dangerous advertising of opioids. Lisa.
Jessica, 4 former employees of a Florida nursing home where patients died in the days after Hurricane Irma in 2017 now facing manslaughter charges.
4 individuals now facing criminal charges failed to take the actions needed to protect their patients and render aid at a time when they needed it the most.
Hollywood, Florida Police Chief Krista O'Brien, a court appearance in Boston for actress Lori Loughlin and her husband in the college admissions cheating scandal.
The hearing was focused on Loughlin and her fashion designer husband, Massimo Giannulli, employing a firm that recently represented the University of Southern California, a plaintiff in the admissions case. The judge warned the couple that maintaining their representation with the firm could present a conflict of interest. But Loughlin and Giannulli's attorneys say the firm's matter with USC is separate from the admissions case and should not conflict, thus opting to keep their current counsel. But the judge must still rule on another potential conflict involving a second firm and other common clients.
Fox's Gernal Scott. Wall Street at the close, the Dow lost 120, the NASDAQ fell 26. America is listening to Fox News.
Summer's ending, and savings are back in business with Dell's Labor Day sale. Small businesses can save up to 40% on select business computers with Intel Core processors, plus free shipping on everything, including a wide selection of thousands of top-brand electronics. Give our specially trained small business technology advisors a call. They can help you find just the right tech to fit your business with Labor Day savings. Visit Dell.com/business deals or call 877-BUY-DELL. That's 877-BUY-DELL.
This is Carl on his motorcycle.
Let's ride till we run out of gas!
And this is Carl off his motorcycle.
Balsa wood is very different than teak. People confuse the two.
On his motorcycle?
Hey! Check out that view!
Off his motorcycle.
Let's do puzzles in the break room.
On?
Look at all that open road!
Off.
Look how long my fingernails are getting.
You're better on your bike. Progressive helps keep you on it. Get a quote in as little as 3 minutes at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
Who say they were...
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
With your KVFD News Update, I'm Rob Jones. Dickinson County authorities issued an updated statement regarding Vincent Harvey this morning. Harvey had last been seen Saturday night at Parks Marina in Dickinson County and was officially reported missing Sunday morning. The statement from the Dickinson County Sheriff's Office this morning said that just before midnight last night, one of the deputies noticed an object in the water about 45 yards from the shore. The deputies determined it was a body and contacted the Arnold Parks Okoboji dive team. The dive team recovered the body, and the body was identified as Fort Dodge resident Vincent Harvey. The Fort Dodge Fire Department has added a new member. Cole Campen was appointed and approved by the Fort Dodge City Council at last night's City Council meeting. Campen is a Fort Dodge native who graduated from Fort Dodge Senior High School. After graduating there, he studied sports and recreation management at the University of Iowa. He also studied fire science at Kirkwood Community College in Cedar Rapids. Campen recently earned his certification as an emergency medical technician. During last night's Board of Education meeting, the board was presented with a request to suspend the class size policy for this school year. The suspension in policy would likely affect Cooper Elementary by adding a few more children to some of its classes. Board policy states the maximum number of students for kindergarten through second grade classes is 25 and 27 for third and fourth grade. The Fort Dodge Community School District said the request was a way to avoid being forced to assign students to schools that they live outside the boundaries of. Broadband survey results and the possible move toward improved broadband connectivity were the most prevalent topics at last night's Fort Dodge City Council meeting. Curtis Dean, the president of Smart Source Consulting, presented findings of the recent broadband survey to the council and laid out the future benefits of a new fiber network here in Fort Dodge.
And all these people who are on a fiber network would likely be the upload speeds would be better, and just the download speeds could be better as well, if depending on what level of service you offer.
City Councilman Terry Minke had a question regarding the durability and life expectancy of the fiber network. Here's the dean's response.
The fiber itself, so the strands of glass in the ground or on poles, have a lifetime of 30 to 40 years. So you're not going to be investing in a lot of replacing fiber.
For KVFD from the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom, I'm Rob.
Live from the headquarters of Ramsey Solutions, broadcasting from the Dollar Car Rental Studios, it's the Dave Ramsey Show, where debt is dumb, cash is king, and the paid-off home mortgage has taken the place of the BMW as the status symbol of choice. I'm Dave Ramsey, your host. Thanks for joining us. Open phones at 888-825-5225. That's 888-825-5225. 5225. Ashley starts off this hour in New Jersey. Hi, Ashley. Welcome to the Dave Ramsey Show.
Hi, Dave. How are you?
Better than I deserve. What's up?
Okay, so I have a question, more so an opinion on a situation. It has a little to do with credit, which I know you hate, so please don't yell at me. But, so